Chapter 629. Passing through a quiet and empty passage, passing through a gray and silent street, when Kira stood in front of a building, he found that someone was already waiting for him. It seemed that this was the place LH033 was talking about. Kira's eyes met with the person waiting there. After that person signaled Kira to follow, he turned around and walked into the dilapidated building. "Excuse me, this is Lux here?" Although Kira followed behind, he still subconsciously asked when he stepped into the unknown darkness. However, the person leading the way didn't do so, nor did he pay any attention to Kira. He just silently completed his task. The two strolled in the darkness one after the other. If it weren't for the increasingly bright light in front, Kira would have looked back to see how far he had walked in the darkness. "She's here. Go in." Walking out of the darkness and stepping into the bright light, the person leading the way turned slightly and opened the iron door under the light. The heavy, slow, and ear-piercing sound shook Kira's spirit. He subconsciously cast his gaze behind the iron gate where the card was punched. "Please come in. Miss is waiting for you inside." "Miss?" Kira was taken aback. Could it be Lux Klein? Under the confusion, there was a trace of eagerness to see a certain figure. Amidst Kira's anxious footsteps, he stepped into the open door. At that moment, a warm aura enveloped Kira. A gentle voice sounded in his ears. In front of his eyes was the warm furniture and the pink girl who was sitting on the sofa and slowly pouring black tea. "Lux?" Kira was pleasantly surprised. He didn't expect the Miss mentioned by that person was really Lux Klein. Hearing Kira's surprised voice, LH033 put down the teapot and turned to Kira with a gentle smile. "Kira, we meet again. Come. Why don't you try the black tea I made?" Before Kira could react, a fragrant wind blew in his face. A gentle touch wrapped around Kira's right hand. Then, he instinctively followed the owner of the gentle touch. An intoxicating voice. It was a figure that made people unable to help but feel gentle. Every time he appeared in front of Kira, Kira couldn't help but want more tenderness. "Come. Sit down first." LH033 noticed Kira's change, but he didn't say anything. "Lux, how did you get here?" The aroma of the black tea did not intoxicate Kira. His attention was still on why the girl in front of him had appeared on this abandoned colonial satellite. "It's just a small inspection." LH033's movements paused for a moment, but Kira didn't notice. "Check?" Kira was a little confused, but due to his trust in the pink girl in front of him, he didn't ask any more questions. This allowed LH033 to breathe a sigh of relief. If Kira continued to insist on why she left Plant and appeared on this abandoned colonial satellite, she would not be able to convince Kira. Could it be that LH033 would confess that he was a photocopier who originated from Lacus Klein? Yes, it was just an inspection. Although this colonial satellite is abandoned, the facilities here are very advanced. At the same time, there are not many idle people here. LH033 casually responded to Kira's doubts, then picked up the teacup and took a sip, then brought the topic back to Kira. "Kira, is there a problem on your side?" Hearing this, Kira nodded. Although he met up with the Archangel and even his friends didn't agree with his philosophy. They only agreed with the actions of Ray Minkai, who piloted the Free Gauda and rescued everyone on the Archangel. This frustrated Kira greatly. He quietly listened to Kira's story. Listening to his complaint, the encouraging smile on LH033's face also made Kira's frustrated heart gradually recover. "Really? I didn't expect him, Ray Minkai, to be one step ahead. But this is not a big problem. Although the Archangel doesn't agree with your philosophy, please don't be discouraged. In this world, there are still other people who agree with your philosophy." "Others?" "Yes, others. For example, Maltese. A very important person. She has always wanted to meet you. Now, maybe it's a good opportunity. Kira frowned slightly when LH-033 mentioned her, Maltese. Listening to LH-033's description, she seemed to be a very powerful woman. Could it be that the facilities here were owned by this woman named Maltese? If it was true, Kira seemed to understand why LH-033 would come to this colonial satellite Mendel after failing to recruit the Archangel. Maltese, all of a sudden, an ear-piercing alarm sounded. Before LH-033 and Kira could react, a strong tremor followed the siren and wantonly struck the building. Rumble! Under the strong vibration, the soft light dimmed and brightened. The black tea in the cup scattered on the table and dripped along the table to the ground, staining LH-033's white skirt with red spot. Be careful! The moment the teacup rolled off the table and smashed, Kira flew up and pulled LH-033, who was careless and lost her balance due to the vibration. Thank you, Kira. Kira's steady and powerful body made LH-033 feel at ease, but now was not the time to be tender. Let's go. Let's go see what happened. LH-033 gently pushed Kira away and took the lead to walk to the door. Kira couldn't help but feel a sense of loss, but he still followed behind LH-033. Outside the passage, the strange sound mixed with the alarm and the strong vibration became more intense and harsh. Silhouettes continued to pass through the depths of the passageway, as if they were responding to some situation. LH-033's eyes flashed with a dignified look. She seemed to have understood what was going on. Kira, come with me. In the current urgency, she must first find Maltese before deciding what to do next. At the same time, outside the building, a group of well-trained mercenaries followed the plan and launched a fierce bombardment on the building occupied by the clan. All kinds of cannons had long been retired by the Earth Alliance. There were even some tanks in active service that were pulled here by these mercenaries. They surrounded the building so tightly that not even a drop of water could leak out, constantly emitting roars of bombardment. What a big lineup! Aren't you afraid of scaring people away? Jemengard crossed her arms and said with interest. No. I know Maltese. As long as I appear here, she will never escape. Beside Jemengard was Matthias, who had met Ray Minkai before. Speaking of which, I have to thank Miss Jemengard and His Excellency Ray Minkai for their help. If it weren't for your activity, I'm afraid Maltese wouldn't have chosen this place as the new base of the clan. No. I didn't do anything. On the contrary, my actions so far have only been to protect myself. Matthias's gratitude was not accepted by Ray Minkai. His contact with the clan and the librarian had basically stopped after discovering Klaya. Therefore, Matthias' thanks were more like pleasantries in essence. No. It's precisely because of this that I want to express my gratitude to His Excellency Ray Minkai. Perhaps you don't know, but the person standing behind Maltese is the enemy you are facing now. Miss E. The enemy Matthias mentioned was not someone else, but Miss E., who had been hiding behind Plant and Zaf. Yes. It's precisely because of Miss E's participation that the clan and Maltese have the technology to perfectly replicate humans. I wonder if you and Miss Jemengard can understand the meaning of the word perfect replication. Perfect replication. Upon hearing this word, Jemengard's eyes were filled with solemnity. Obviously, this woman, who used the name of the giant snake in Norse mythology as her code name, already understood the meaning of this word. Are there no genetic defects? If that's the case, I already understand. The most direct example of the quality of cloning technology in the CE century was Lao Lu Kreutzer. If there was no technical problem of genetic defects, then the clones produced by the clan would probably replace the leaders of various countries in a short period of time. Thinking of this, Lei Minkai suddenly understood why Matthias would launch an attack with such fanfare, even at the expense of exposing his whereabouts. It was to prevent Maltese, who had already mastered this new technology, from escaping. Otherwise, Maltese, who had ruthlessly abandoned this new base, could still rely on this new technology to make a comeback. In addition, Miss E, who was hiding behind the scenes, was probably not going to let this go. Then, Matthias, act according to your plan. Thank you very much for your understanding. Matthias thanked him again, then raised his hand and waved. The mercenaries he had recruited slowed down the bombardment on the spot and rushed into the building according to the attack plan along the attack route that they had deliberately left behind. Da-da-da! In an instant, the tunnel that was attacked by the mercenaries was filled with intense gunshots and sounds of fighting. Inside the building, the core area of the clan's base. Clan leader Maltese. What's going on? LH-033, who had brought Kira all the way to the core area where Maltese was, quickly asked when he saw Maltese. It's an attack. Someone is attacking our facility. Maltese glanced at LH-033 and Kira, then calmly replied and continued. Now, Miss and this young man, please go ahead first. The battle here will continue for a while. For your safety, please hide for a while. Then, Maltese ignored LH-033 and Kira and ordered people to take them away. Maltese knew that LH-033 would definitely persuade her to leave, but this was not the same as before. This was because on the screen in front of Maltese, there was a man standing openly in front of the only surviving camera outside the building. He was her brother, Matthias, who had been missing for several years after she took away the position of clan leader. There was no doubt that this was a battle for revenge. Although Maltese did not know how Matthias found this place, it was inevitable. As long as one of the siblings, Matthias and Maltese, didn't die in the battle for the Patriarch's position back then, the battle would continue. Pass down the order. After sending LH-033 and Kira Yamato out, fight with all your strength. Yes. Before leaving the room, Maltese coldly looked at Matthias on the screen. Come, brother. In the end, a clan is not something you can control. Compared to the previous bombardment, the battle inside the facility was more intense and tragic. In the narrow space, guns, grenades, and even the swinging of blades during close combat had become the main characters of this battle. The mercenaries, who crawled and rolled in the pile of corpses, relied on their own ability and experience to continuously push forward, approaching the core area of the clan. However, just as they were about to reach the core area, a group of figures covered from head to toe in black helmets and tight suits stopped the mercenaries. In an instant, not only were the mercenaries, who were about to win, frustrated, but they were also caught off guard and pushed back by the group of strange men in black. Immediately, the mercenaries suffered heavy losses. Sir, our attack has been thwarted. It seems that we have encountered the imprint troop. Of course. As the former clan leader of the clan, Matthias naturally knew of the existence of the imprint. Therefore, when he started the battle for revenge, he prepared some gifts for the imprint troop. Proceed according to the plan. After giving the order, Matthias looked at Ray Minkai. Sir, please begin the operation. That woman, Maltese, will not keep that person by her side. It is very likely that she will let that person evacuate early. Ray Minkai knew very well who Matthias was referring to. I'll leave this place to you. I hope that after the end of the battle, some of the facilities can be preserved. Matthias chuckled softly and said with understanding, of course. A knight always needs some evidence to prove justice, don't you think so? Kira and LH-033, who quickly evacuated along the emergency passage, were getting further and further away from the sounds of fighting. Under the lead of Maltese's men, LH-033 and Kira quickly returned to the spaceport where Holy Accord Gouda was. Fortunately, there was no battle here, nor were there any enemies. This is as far as I can go. Miss and Sir, please evacuate immediately. Our clan leader will take care of the rest. After Kira and LH-033 nodded, they entered Holy Accord Gouda's cockpit together and prepared to evacuate. However, when Holy Accord Gauda was activated, a communication from the Archangel came. Kira, Kira, where are you? I heard that there was a battle in the colonial satellite, right? It was Miriaria's anxious voice. After all, they were good friends. Even if they did not accept Kira's philosophy, the bond between friends still existed. Kira and LH-033 looked at each other and picked up the communication. No, I'm fine. Now, I'm preparing to return to Archangel. Is that so? That's great. Before Miriaria finished speaking, the image suddenly shook a few times. As the image shook, a black-haired girl appeared in front of Kira. Kira Yamato, is there a guest in Holy Accord Gauda's cockpit? The black-haired girl was Lux Klein, who had returned to Archangel first and was waiting for Rei Minkai's signal. Audrey, is there such a Kira, who subconsciously agreed, suddenly remembered that LH-033's identity was Lux Klein from Plant. Even though Kira didn't fully admit it, Lakis chuckled as though she was a young girl who wanted to make new friends. Is that so? I wonder if Kira can introduce this new friend to me? As she spoke, Lux suddenly came to a realization. Right. Before making new friends, what I should do is introduce myself, right? Then, under Kira's shocked gaze, the black-haired girl on the screen put her hands together and softly chanted. In the name of Visser. A colorful stream of light appeared out of thin air and dissipated. Amidst the dissipating multicolored light, soft pink hair and a delicate face appeared. She chuckled. Nice to meet you. I'm Lux Klein. Nice to meet you. Someone who has the same appearance and voice as me. Chapter 630. I'm Lakis Klein. The sudden announcement of her identity stunned everyone present. Lakis Klein? In the bridge of Archangel, the communicator Kaz's voice became distorted, and his face was full of disbelief. The others were the same. They never thought that the black-haired girl who knew everyone on the Archangel and was saved by the Archangel was actually Lux Klein of Plant. The image of the black-haired girl that they were familiar with, however, hid her true body that was shocking to the extreme. Margaret turned to look at the pink girl standing in front of the camera and sighed in her heart. Although she had already noticed it, she did not expect such a shocking truth to be hidden under Lakis's black-haired girl image. She really is a knight. Margaret remembered how Mu addressed Rei Minkai. As a bystander, when they saw Mu address Rei Minkai as a knight, they could not help but feel a little strange. But now, it seemed that Mu should be the first person on Archangel to realize the truth behind Rei Minkai and Lakis. On the bridge, everyone's shocked expressions were all seen by Lakis. But she did not retreat because of this. This was the inevitable result. No matter how perfect Audrey Britannia's black-haired girl image was, it could not replace Lakis's true appearance. Answer me. You have the same appearance and voice as me. Why are you here? Why did you take everything from me? Lakis took a step forward and looked at the two people's faces that had been transferred to the main screen. Kira Yamato and the pink girl sitting in her arms. Shock, unacceptable, in fact, there was even a trace of panic in his frightened eyes. Is this the person who took everything from me? Looking at the face that looked exactly like her, Lux's gaze turned sharp, which was rare for her. Ever since the Silver Wind incident broke out, her face, voice, and identity had been used by others. She kept standing on the stage of Plant as Lakis Klein. Standing on the stage of Plant, she acted as an advocate for peace, but in fact, she was secretly pushing for war. And now, the person who took the name of Lakis Klein was actually so shamelessly looking at the pink girl sitting in Kira's arms and acting somewhat intimately. A sharp and cold pressure spread out from Lakis and swept through the entire bridge, causing everyone to shiver uncontrollably. The gentle and amiable Lakis Klein actually had such a side. Miss Audrey, this joke isn't funny. The sudden appearance of Lakis Klein made Kira unable to react for a moment. But due to her experience of being taken care of on the hospital bed some time ago, Kira still subconsciously thought that the Klein beside her was the real Lakis Klein. And the Lakis on the bridge of Archangel was just a joke. No. This is not a joke. Kira Yamato. Who is the real Lakis Klein? I believe this Lakis Klein, beside you knows very well. Oh, Kira, who still wanted to refute subconsciously, was suddenly shocked. Holy Accord Gauda subconsciously retreated a distance. And in front of the rapidly retreating Holy Accord Gauda, a meteor suddenly appeared in front of Kira. The meteor disappeared in the blink of an eye. But a huge blue and white figure appeared in front of Holy Accord Gauda. It was Free Gauda. Kira, you're still the same. When Lakis revealed her identity, Free Gauda had already arrived near Archangel. However, Rei Minkai waited for a short while before piloting Gauda to appear in front of Holy Accord Gauda. Free Gauda raised the Sirius Constellation beam rifle and pointed it at Holy Accord Gauda. Rei Minkai's slightly mocking voice sounded. Kai, why are you doing this? This isn't a funny joke? Kira seemed to have confirmed that the girl beside him was the real Lakis Klein. A joke? Even if Lakis risked her life and revealed her identity, you're still insisting that the person beside you is the real Lakis Klein? Kira. Obviously, Rei Minkai's words could not sway Kira at all. I don't know what you're talking about. Right now, the most important thing is to save people, not to watch a magic show here. Kira frowned and tried to pilot Holy Accord Gauda back to Mendel, but LH-033 pressed his right hand down. Kira looked at LH-033 in surprise, but he did not expect to see a hint of pleading in LH-033's eyes. Before Kira could open his mouth to ask, Lei Minkai's voice, which was becoming more and more mocking, rang out once more. Save people? Kira, do you know who the person you want to save is? Also, do you know the true identity of Lakis Klein beside you? Kai, what are you talking about? She's Lakis Klein. She's the benefactor who saved me from the hell of being tortured by Earth. She's the person who let me see this world clearly. Kira insisted on his view of the person beside him. Torture? Rei Minkai was slightly surprised, but he sighed secretly. Kira really had an unfortunate experience in the Alaskan base. However, this was not a reason for him to not see the situation in front of him clearly. Kira Yamato, I didn't know that you piloting Holy Accord Gauda into Mendel was probably because of Lakis Klein. Then, do you know what's hidden in this abandoned colonial satellite? Rei Minkai saw the live broadcast from Mendel from the corner of his eye. From the image, Matthias had already attacked the core area of the building. Rei Minkai could even see the woman with a similar face to Matthias in the shaking image. Maltese. Her appearance undoubtedly solved the mystery of why the Lakis Klein beside Kira would appear here. Why did Kira pilot Holy Accord Gauda into Mendel alone? Kira, let's go. Rei Minkai's eyes that seemed to have seen through the truth made LH-033 feel scared. Although she could not know the situation in Mendel, from Rei Minkai's expression and words, Maltese probably could not hold on for much longer. Don't worry. We'll be fine. LH-033's little hands, which were gradually trembling, grabbed Kira's right arm and begged Kira to take her away. A hint of uneasiness flashed across Kira's heart, but he suppressed it in the next second. No. We'll leave here immediately. Kira. That person. I don't want to see her. On the screen, Lakis's sharp gaze made LH-033's psychological defense collapse quickly. Yes. Even if they had the same face, voice, and even memories, LH-033 was still not the real Lakis Klein, nor would she ever be the real Lakis. Her face, her voice, her memories, they were all stolen from Lux Klein. She did not experience Lakis Klein's memories from when she was young. Nor did she experience Lakis Klein's efforts from when she was learning to speak to when she was singing the sounds of nature. All she had was the instinctive actions that had formed since she opened her eyes, the actions of Lakis Klein. Furthermore, LH-033 was afraid that Lakis Klein would expose her true identity. Lakis. Kira moved his lips and secretly gritted his teeth. In the end, he still chose to drive Holy Accord Gauda away from Mendel. As the Holy Accord Gundam pushed forward, the flames of the backpack disappeared, and the Freedom Gundam slowly lowered its raised Sirius beam rifle. Why did you let him go? Isn't it good to leave him here? White Cat State Zero raised its head and looked at Holy Accord Gauda's back. No, it's not good to leave Kira here. The seed of doubt had been planted in Kira's heart. No matter what kind of fruit this seed would bear, Kira Yamato would no longer be the Kira Yamato that Rei Minkai was familiar with. Be careful of playing with fire. No. I'm more worried about Aslan's situation than Kira. In the last operation, neither I nor Nigger found any information related to Aslan. That kid? Indeed. If he lets go of his indecisiveness, he will be a terrifying enemy. In Mendel, the sound of gunshots had become sparse. The mercenaries led by Matthias paid the price of losing nearly 60% of their men. Finally, they managed to suppress Maltese and her subordinates in a hall. The hall was surrounded by mercenaries, and not even a drop of water could trickle through. Long time no see. My sister, Maltese. How have you been recently? Matthias stood behind the mercenaries and looked condescendingly at the crowd that was besieged in the middle of the hall. He looked at the woman in the crowd who had a face similar to his, and then at the maid who was guarding beside her. Matthias, don't think that I will be defeated so easily by you. Maltese raised her eyes and looked at her brother, Matthias. Of course. In order to get to where I am today, I have paid a lot. Maltese, I know that you have relied on a great person, and because of that, you have received help to make the technological flaws of a race perfect. But, Maltese, don't forget. Matthias raised his hand and clenched it tightly. The more a race masters such a forbidden technology, the more they will betray this world. Do you know? The girl you just sent away, her real body is waiting for her outside. Lakis Klein? She didn't die. How is that possible? Maltese was shocked. Her calmness finally showed some changes on her face. One must know that there were traces of Erase's involvement in the Silver Wind incident. It was precisely because of the clansmen that the Silver Wind had secretly replaced the crew of the Silver Wind, that the Silver Wind wouldn't have ended up in such a state. How is that possible? Maltese, don't think that you can control everything just because you rely on a great person. Now, it's time for you to pay the price. Matthias raised his right hand and was about to wave it down, but the maid standing beside Maltese suddenly said, Patriarch, please don't give the order. However, Matthias closed his eyes and ignored the maid's call. He waved his right hand down. Da-da-da-da. In the blink of an eye, the hall was filled with fire and gunshots. Amidst the flickering firelight, Yi Qingyu amidst the gunshots that sounded like beans exploding, amidst the blooming of blood-red flowers, Maltese, the maid standing beside her, and the subordinates who followed Maltese, all fell into a pool of blood. It's over. The gunshots gradually subsided. Matthias' cold gaze swept across the pool of blood and stopped on Maltese's pale face that had been frozen for life. Maltese, I hate you for stealing my position as patriarch, but you let me see the world clearly. From then on, the internal strife of a race might have ended just like that. However, this was far from the end. Those were photos taken from inside Mendel, from a race's facility, those culture tanks that still contained failed products, and those pieces of paper that recorded cold and ruthless data, all of which surprised the people on the Archangel and the Grass Fiend that entered the facility later. Standing on the empty balcony, Margaret's stomach was still in a tumbling state. She, who was pale, could still grit her teeth and endure, but others who could not bear it were already hiding in the corner and retching. Captain, drink some water. Lakis, who was holding a bottle of drinking water, came to Margaret's side. "Thank you." When Margaret thanked her, she couldn't help but take another look at the girl who was now openly showing her face as Lakis Klein. After revealing her identity, Lakis seemed to have thrown away some of her scruples, and her actions became more generous. "No, Miss Lakis. Did you know about the situation here a long time ago?" Lakis nodded slightly. "Yes. To be honest, I'm still one of the victims." "Captain Margaret, you also heard the conversation between Kai and Kira just now. At that time, the girl sitting in Kira's arms, that Lakis Klein, might have been born here." Chapter 631. The aroma of coffee drifted in the bridge, causing everyone in the bridge to gulp. "Captain, now is not the time to drink coffee." The aroma of the coffee was too alluring, and the young adjutant couldn't help but protest. "Oh, Martin, I don't understand. This is to celebrate the successful completion of our first voyage, isn't it?" A hearty smile hung at the corner of his mouth as he held the aroma of the coffee in his hand. The man who had been missing for a long time, known as the Desert Tiger, seemed to be implying something. This isn't the way to celebrate the success of the first voyage. Besides, the SS Eternity hasn't even set sail yet. Martin couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. The great name of the Desert Tiger was extremely resounding, whether it was in the Earth Alliance or in Zaf. In order to complete this infiltration and seize the SS Eternity, they had spent a lot of effort to successfully seize the ship. Now, they were only one step away from success. That was to drive the SS Eternity away from Plant's Zaft base and head towards the colonial satellite Mendel to meet up with Ray Minkai, Lakis, and the others. Why isn't it like this? No matter how mellow the wine is, I have no interest in it. So, I want to use my own method to celebrate the first voyage. Is that not okay? After the Desert Tiger raised his cup, he turned his head to look at the woman sitting at the side of the table. "Aisha, don't you think so too?" The woman who was called by the Desert Tiger turned her head and replied helplessly, "Andy, if you continue like this, once the SS Eternity activates, the coffee in the cup will fly everywhere." The Desert Tiger was taken aback for a moment before he burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha. That's true. That's true. The next destination of the SS Eternity is not a place where you can enjoy your coffee." That being said, the Desert Tiger raised his cup again and pointed it at the large closed gate in front of him. "To Her Highness the Princess. Cheers." The bitter, slightly hot black coffee slid down his throat. The Desert Tiger tossed the cup aside and picked up the microphone on the chair. "This is the bridge. I'm Captain Andy Butterfield. Now, this ship will make the final preparations. Repeat. I will make the final preparations." This was an order, and at the same time, a secret signal. The soldiers who had infiltrated the ship with the Desert Tiger raised their guns and chased the Zaft soldiers who weren't on their side out of the ship. Naturally, the changes within the SS Eternity could not be hidden from the control center. The SS Eternity. SS Eternity. What happened over there? Many soldiers had suddenly retreated from the SS Eternity. SS Eternity. Please reply if you get it. Desert Tiger shrugged when he heard the command center's call. He then nodded at Aisha. Aisha understood and connected to the control center. This is the SS Eternity. Now, this ship is about to make its first voyage. Repeat. This ship is about to make its first voyage. Pausing for a moment, the corners of Aisha's mouth curled up. "If it's possible, could I trouble you to open the door for the SS Eternity? After all, I don't want this port to be temporarily shut down." Aisha's words stunned the control center, but the well-trained staff changed the password on the spot. "Captain, the gate password has been changed," Martin yelled loudly. Bartfield sighed and gave Aisha a reproachful look. Under her "it's not my fault" look, he raised his hand and gave the order. SS Eternity, activate the main cannon. Target the door ahead. Unfortunately, we didn't want to do this, but if we continue wasting time like this, we will miss our agreement with the princess and the knight protecting her. The moment the orders were given, the SS Eternity's main cannon, the beam cannon, began to hum as it aimed at the door, blocking the SS Eternity's path into the endless expanse of space. SS Eternity, please stop all attacks immediately. Please stop all attacks immediately. Otherwise we will execute everyone on board for treason. Seeing the SS Eternity ready to fire its beam cannons, the command center became nervous. They couldn't help but use their most threatening words to stop the SS Eternity from firing. Treason? It seems to be very serious. What do we do? At first, Butterfield revealed an awkward expression. Then, he clapped his hands as if he had suddenly realized something. That's right. The man known as the Desert Tiger is already MIA on Zaft's list. Then, the current Andy Bartfield isn't considered Zaft, and he isn't even considered a member of Plant. If that's the case, he can't be convicted of treason. Tisk tsk. Martin, don't you think so? Bartfield's twisted argument left Martin at a loss whether to laugh or cry, but he didn't know how to respond to his captain's words. Sigh. Aisha. Looks like our adjutant Martin doesn't know how to liven up the atmosphere. Bartfield saw his adjutant's dumbfounded expression and sighed. Suddenly, he said with a serious expression. SS Eternity. Main cannon. Fire. 1. In the next second, under the despairing eyes of the control center's staff, the SS Eternity's main cannon fired, blasting the door, blocking the SS Eternity at close range. The powerful explosion not only destroyed the door, but also threw the control center into chaos. They only had enough time to issue a warning to the patrolling Weissalius outside Plant. Amidst the explosion, the SS Eternity tore through the thick smoke and rushed into space without any hindrance. At the same time, it revealed its existence without reservation. The warning came from the control center. Thick smoke rose from the port. And that unfamiliar warship with peach-red paint. It immediately attracted the attention of the Weissalius. However, by the time the Weissalius reacted to the SS Eternity's sudden attack, the SS Eternity had already used its high speed to escape from the Weissalius pursuit range. Captain Kreutzer, should we give chase? The Weissalius CIC was stunned and subconsciously asked. They naturally received the warning from the control center. But from the current situation, the Weissalius had no chance of catching up to the SS Eternity. No. That ship's speed is incomparable to the Weissalius. Even if we give chase at full speed, we'll only be able to watch the enemy's shadow disappear before our eyes. We'll leave it to the Yakin Douay defense line to deal with. Having been summoned back to Plant for a period of time, Kreutzer felt that it was great to be able to stay in Plant. He had thought that he had missed the opportunity to meet Gouda, but in reality, he had seen the SS Eternity escape from Plant. If he guessed correctly, the SS Eternity's next move would be to meet up with Gouda. When that time came, Patrick Sala would not be able to sit still. That meant that Kreutzer's opportunity had arrived. Ignoring Kreutzer's plans, the fact that the SS Eternity had escaped from Plant at full speed was enough to shock Zaft. Especially the Yakin Douay defense line's Zaft troop. They had never imagined that they would face an enemy from their homeland. From the emergency order from Plant's defense department, the SS Eternity was on Zaft's kill list. There was no persuasion to surrender. There was no need to persuade them to surrender. As long as the Yakin Douay defense line's Zaft troops discovered the SS Eternity, they could attack without reason until the SS Eternity was sunk. Andy, there's movement at Yakin Douay's defense line. 1 Sig Gu, 19 Jean N, a total of 20 MS fighters are intercepting the SS Eternity. In addition, from the heat patterns and speed, the enemy seems to be carrying heavy equipment. Isha's gaze was fixed on the screen in front of her. She reported the data from the radar and her own speculations to Baltfield. That's inevitable. If it were me, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to watch the SS Eternity swagger past Yakin Due's defense line. Therefore, this will be the final obstacle to meeting up with Her Highness the Princess. All ships, Level 1 combat mode. Aerial combat. Begin. He clearly understood the situation the SS Eternity was in. He also understood the actions he had to take. Baltfield did not hesitate to give the order to attack. Thus, the beam cannons that had destroyed the port gates were raised once more. This time, their target was the MS forces that were carrying heavy equipment capable of destroying the SS Eternity. There's no need to lock onto the target. Just the general range is enough. The SS Eternity's main cannon is not some small water gun. Main cannon. Fire. A dazzling light erupted from the bow of the SS Eternity. In the blink of an eye, the light that split the darkness apart pierced through the MS forces that were surrounding the SS Eternity in a crescent formation. In the next second, 4 bright sparks lit up in the darkness. One hit. The SS Eternity's second hit ended with 4 Gene and being shot down. This cannon, everyone! Spread out! The SS Eternity's stunning display caused the Sig-Gu pilot to be greatly shaken. Captain, the SS Eternity's left and right sides are surrounded by Gene N. Don't panic. Begin the attack. Anti-air missiles, fire. Don't miss a single MS attack. We can't let anything happen to Her Highness Dowry. The adjutant was dumbfounded once more. Martin, focus. Now is not the time to be distracted. Isha sighed and reminded Martin not to be distracted. Anti-air missiles continuously rose from the launchers and intercepted the heavy missiles fired by the Gene N. But no matter how effective the SS Eternity's anti-air missiles were, they were facing Yakin Due, an elite from the frontline fortress of the Earth Alliance army. How to surround and destroy a warship was a common occurrence for these elite. Even if the warship they were hunting was the newest warship from Zaft, the SS Eternity, it was still the same. Under Butterfield's command, the SS Eternity not only fired anti-air missiles at full power, but also activated the automatic fire god cannons used for mid-range defense to supplement the SS Eternity's anti-air network. However, just as mentioned earlier, the elite pilots of Yakin Due were very proficient in hunting down a warship with excellent anti-air capabilities. 6 Gene N and 8 Gene N formed 2 assault squads that attacked the SS Eternity in wave. The first wave of attacks, led by the 6 Gene N, didn't care if their attacks could damage the SS Eternity. Instead, they rained down all their heavy equipment on the SS Eternity. The purpose of this was to deplete the SS Eternity's firepower reserves in a short period of time, thus reducing the SS Eternity's firepower density to allow for a second wave of Gene N attack. This coordinated attack was effective. The seamless wave of attacks left the SS Eternity unable to fend for itself, exposing a fatal flaw in the dense anti-air network. This flaw allowed the Gene N's heavy missiles to strike the SS Eternity's engines. Captain, the SS Eternity can't evade the attack. Everyone, defend against the attack. Faced with the threat of the missiles heading straight for the SS Eternity's engines, both the SS Eternity and Butterfield were out of options. They could only choose the worst and most passive option. But heaven never bars one's way. Just as the missiles were about to hit the SS Eternity, a multicolored light appeared out of thin air, like a net that blocked all the missiles that were about to hit the SS Eternity. Then, a stream of light appeared in the endless darkness. An afterimage blossomed with a pair of resplendent, radiant wings. In the blink of an eye, the afterimage appeared between the SS Eternity and the Gene N troop. Whoosh! Thunderous roars seemed to resound in the void, attracting Butterfield's attention and sending King's troops chasing after the SS Eternity into the abyss of endless darkness. Boom! 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 After the SS Eternity successfully escaped from the encirclement, dazzling flowers bloomed behind it. We've shaken off the enemy? Martin, who had just recovered from the dazzling fireworks, was somewhat confused. Yes, the SS Eternity has already escaped from Yakin Douay's defensive line. Butterfield let out a sigh of relief and exchanged glances with Isha. Looks like we've been saved by night again. Night. Martin was stunned. He quickly tapped on the keyboard a few times and looked at the information displayed on the screen. Freedom Gouda? How can that be? Freedom Gouda doesn't have that kind of speed? He's practically turning into a ray of light. Martin, nothing is absolute in this world. Looks like we've missed out on something wonderful. Butterfield showed a smile, looked at the face that appeared on the screen, and greeted him. Yo, long time no see. The Princess's Night. Chapter 632. After causing a ruckus at Yakin Douay's defense line, the SS Eternity finally had a chance to rest after finally reaching Mendel's colony satellite. Martin. What's wrong today? The coffee seems a bit lacking. While the SS Eternity was docking, Butterfield once again took out a cup of coffee and slowly sipped it. Only this time, the coffee wasn't brewed by him, but by his adjutant Martin. From the unusual taste of the coffee, Butterfield could sense the fluctuations in Martin's mood. No, Captain. It's just that I have some doubts about the Free Gouda. If he really has that kind of power, then wouldn't the Free Gouda be able to easily break through Yakin Douay's defense line? Martin thought back to how the Free Gouda easily dealt with the pursuers of the SS Eternity. He couldn't help but think that the Free Gouda alone could break through Yakin Douay's defense line. Pa! Just as he was thinking this, Martin was slapped by Butterfield. Idiot! What are you thinking? There's nothing absolutely invincible in this world. If one side was strong, then it meant that the other side would be even stronger. That knight's Free Gouda might be strong, but from his actions, he seems to be afraid of something. Butterfield put down his cup, his gaze gradually turning serious. Although the Free Gouda was here to cover the SS Eternity's retreat, Butterfield's sharp intuition told him that the Free Gouda was on guard against something. Hey, forget it. In any case, I'm about to see that knight. When the time comes, I'll just ask him face to face. Outside, the auxiliary mechanical arms were slowly fixing the SS Eternity to its berth in the harbor. At the side of the SS Eternity, the Archangel and the Grasshopper Viper were quietly waiting for supplies. Butterfield and the others are here. In the control center, Sienna retracted her gaze from the SS Eternity and looked at Lux standing beside her. Lux, this is all I can do for you. The rest of the road will depend on you. You have to walk it yourselves. Sienna looked a little worried. He knew that with the arrival of the SS Eternity, the Klein faction in Plant, which was now under the control of Patrick Sala, was no longer the Klein faction that once dominated half of Plant. Some of the neutral factions might even join the Salam faction. Yes, Father. We have anticipated and prepared for everything. Lakis nodded slightly, responding to her father's concern with determination. So, Father, please don't worry. Sienna couldn't help but sigh at the sight of her daughter, who had become resolute and different from the weak and frail girl in her memories. Sienna didn't know if these changes were good or bad. Really? After making arrangements here, I will return to Scandinavia. If there's nothing else, I'll stay there. Sienna reminded Lakis of the things that she needed to take note of as though she was giving instructions on what to do next. She looked just like a loving father who was about to send his beloved daughter on her journey. Oh right. After giving her instructions, Sienna suddenly recalled something and revealed a smile. I heard about Klaya's matter. I didn't expect Lux to be a new member of our family without me knowing. Sienna's smile seemed to contain some doting. In Lux's memories, Sienna would only smile when she was alone with Lux. Clearly, Sienna didn't hate or loathe Clia's existence just because she was her photoclone. Instead, she liked her. Yes, Clia's birth was unfortunate. So, I hope that Clia can have a warm family. So, Father, please don't mind Clia's identity as a photoclone. She's just a tragedy born out of someone's ambition. Lakis revealed a trace of pity. Lakis had struggled with Clia's existence, but in the end she chose to accept her. I know that, Lakis. Clia isn't just your sister. She's also my daughter. Then, Sienna added, don't worry. Previously, Kai also told me about Clia's matter. He said that photoclones, including Clia, can't choose whether they are born in this world or not, but we have the right and obligation to choose whether we can create a beautiful world for Clia. Then, Sienna let out a long sigh of relief. I didn't expect that after the Silverwind incident, Lakis still has such a person by your side. That's good. I'm relieved. Lakis, if you have any questions in the future, you can rely on Kai. With a smile, Sienna said something that made Lakis blush. If that guy only stays by your side as a guardian knight, it's indeed a bit wasteful. Father, what are you talking about? In a meeting room somewhere in the port, the crew of Archangel, Grassworm, and Eternity had a short meeting. In this meeting, many of them were meeting for the first time. Moreover, Archangel and Butterfield were no longer entangled in fate. Therefore, when the crew of Archangel saw Butterfield, who was known as the Desert Tiger, their eyes were filled with curiosity. Yo, Knight. We meet again. Butterfield looked around and took the initiative to greet the person he was most familiar with. Long time no see. Captain Butterfield. Ray Minkai nodded his head in a friendly manner. That's right. It's really been a long time since we parted in the desert. It's just that I didn't expect you to cause so much trouble after that. As expected of the Princess Knight. Butterfield patted Ray Minkai's shoulder, his words full of admiration for Ray Minkai's liveliness. That's because I had no other choice. Alright, Captain Butterfield. This is Archangel's Captain Mary Uramia's. This is Major Moolah Flag. This is Grassworm's Captain Ledinir Zasaka. This is... Ray Minkai had no intention of continuing the topic after parting in the desert. Therefore, he changed the topic and introduced the surrounding people to Butterfield one by one. However, when he introduced Carrie, Butterfield raised his hand to stop Ray Minkai from speaking. My apologies, Knight. Please forgive my rudeness. Because, for the following matter, we have to settle some matters, right? The little girl who was called the Goddess of Dawn by the refugees in the desert, don't you think so? Butterfield's words immediately caused the atmosphere to stiffen. Archangel wanted to do something, but was stopped by Ray Minkai. Leave it to them. Captain Mariu. Archangel, which had yet to land in the desert, naturally did not know of the grudges between Butterfield and Carrie. Therefore, to settle these matters, only Carrie and Butterfield could settle it themselves. Carrie looked at Butterfield's calm expression. It was as though he did not feel any remorse for the slaughter he had caused in the desert. Gradually, a trace of anger appeared in Carrie's heart, but it immediately dissipated. Are you trying to say that it was a war and that there was no way around it? Butterfield. Desert Tiger. Thinking back to how she had personally witnessed her father choosing to be buried together with Kagaya at the end of the Battle of Ob in order to resist the Earth Alliance, Carrie felt a sense of powerlessness. That is the truth. If you want to find me for revenge, I will be here at any time. Karjali Yura Ashar. However, I do not wish for your actions to cause any trouble to our newly formed and extremely fragile alliance. Baltfield pointed at his heart. Right now, this heart is right before your eyes. As long as you are willing. You, Butterfield. The man who is called the Desert Tiger is actually so despicable? Carrie was both angry and indignant. That's right. Butterfield's current words were using the name of the three-ship alliance to suppress Carrie and force her to make a choice. This choice had already been made long ago. The reason why Carrie was angry was that Butterfield actually used this name to pressure her. Carrie? Suddenly, Carrie turned around and ran out of the conference room, leaving behind a panic-stricken Caesar. Sigh. It seems that I am destined to be the villain. Butterfield sighed and then looked at Ray Minkai. Night. Red and white faces can't be left to the white faces alone. It is time for you to make an appearance. What's the situation? The conflict between Butterfield and Carrie began abruptly and ended abruptly. Not to mention Ray Minkai, even the others were somewhat dumbfounded. That's true, Kai. Right now, I am afraid that there is no one else here who can play the role of the red face. Beside him, Mu spread out his hands, indicating that he was unable to help even if he wanted to. Even if he had seen through Butterfield's actions from the start, he still could not help. Cough, Kai. Sorry to trouble you. Although Margot did not say anything, she had already explained the problem. Beside him, Caesar also reacted to the situation, but the taciturn Caesar shifted his gaze to Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai's eyebrows twitched a few times, but in the end, he accepted reality and left the conference room. All right. Now, the princess and knight have already left. Next, it's time to settle the issues between us commanders. Isn't that right? The soldiers from Earth United, Ob, and even Zaf. Butterfield looked around and took the initiative to show the goodwill of reconciliation. Anger, unwillingness, even a deeper level of sorrow, unceasingly filled Carrie's heart. Even in front of others, Carrie, who pretended to be strong, did not let others feel too much of the sorrow of losing her father. But in reality, whenever she was alone, Carrie would uncontrollably shed tears. If only I had been a little more hard-working, father, Nami Nara Asha might not have died for the country. Damn it! Carrie lowered her head and walked all the way to the empty observation deck. She raised her right hand and viciously smashed the thick glass porthole. Bang! Fortunately, the glass porthole was thick enough and only shook under Carrie's angry fist. Although I understand your feelings, but if you smash the glass, I'm afraid you will have to crash into the deck of Grass Fiend. Carrie. Hearing the sudden noise, Carrie was stunned. Then, she saw the slightly shaking glass. She retracted her right hand behind her back and looked in the direction of the noise. Sigh. Just a little girl who likes to show off. The person who came was not someone else. Instead, it was Ray Minkai who was chased out by Butterfield, Margot, Mu, and Caesar. When Ray Minkai saw Carrie's angry fist smashing the glass, he was shocked. Isn't this girl afraid of smashing the glass and crashing into the deck of Grass Fiend? With a light tap of his foot, Ray Minkai floated to Carrie's side. Stretch out your hand. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to pressure me like that bastard tiger? Yes. You are also from Zaf. Carrie refused to stretch out her right hand and stared fiercely at Ray Minkai. In the desert, I thought you could become the hero who saved the desert. But I didn't expect you to be from Zaft. And you even shot at your own compatriot. Carrie's reprimand was not unexpected. Perhaps when Ray Minkai fired at Zaft's MS soldiers, there would be a day when he would have to face such reprimand. Yes. I won't explain anything. That was just a shot for survival. Moreover, at that time I had to protect Lux. Ray Minkai glanced at Carrie's right hand behind her back and turned to look at the Grass Fiend outside the window. At that time, if I had hesitated for even half a second, then, not only would I have died, Lux would have died too. Carrie, you should have seen the scene in the depths of this colonial satellite, Mendel. At that time, the situation that Lux and I faced was perhaps something that you can't imagine. The imprinted people. Carly's stomach still felt the violent churning of her stomach as she recalled the horrors she had seen in the depths of Mendel. Yes, everything was just for survival. But the people in the desert also wanted to survive. That's why the people in Plant also wanted to survive, right? The food and resources of Plant were blocked by the Earth Alliance. Not only did they have to rely on their own efforts to expand their living space, they also had to establish a base on Earth. No matter what the name of this war was, in the end, it was just for survival. Lei Minkai paused for a moment before continuing. Of course, before the war broke out, the Earth Alliance that was unilaterally oppressing Plant would not do anything for survival. More importantly, the mastermind behind the Earth Alliance wanted to obtain the benefits they wanted through this war. And this mastermind was an organization called Blue Persian Chrysanthemum. This was the culprit that led to the outbreak of this war. As soon as he finished speaking, Lei Minkai noticed that Carrie's gaze had become a little inquisitive. Why, Carrie? Suddenly, Carrie sighed. Nothing. I just found out that a guy doesn't know how to comfort people. Forget it. According to what you said, we, who were involved in this war caused by Blue Persian Chrysanthemum, are just chess pieces struggling to survive? Then, Carrie raised her right hand to show Lei Minkai that her fist had turned red. But I didn't break the glass. Chapter 633. Somewhere in a remote universe, a shuttle glided lightly along the original route into the port of the colonial satellite that had been abandoned by Earth and occupied by many civil organizations. With the arrival of this shuttle, a piece of information was quietly transmitted to the surrounding galaxies along the colonial satellite. Finally, the information was gathered in the hands of a blond man who set foot on the lunar base, Ptolemy. What? Sir Lars Yazzie wants the Angel to attack in advance? Bucky Lulu, who was commanding all the crew to conduct the final departure inspection of the Angel, was taken aback for a moment and couldn't help but ask. Lars Mutta. Yazzie nodded. Although he doesn't think highly of the female Captain Bucky Lulu, in view of the face of the Earth United, he still told them some of the information he got. Captain Bucky Lulu, I believe you have also heard about the Alaska base and the mysterious Mecha that appeared in the orb attack and defense battle, right? Hearing this, Bucky Lulu nodded. As the new captain of the Angel, Bucky Lulu was certain that at some point in the future, she would inevitably encounter the two mysterious Mecha that appeared in the orb attack and defense battle at the Alaska base. It seems that Captain Bucky Lulu is indeed qualified to be the captain of this battleship. After Lars Yazzie praised Bucky Lulu for doing her homework in advance, he continued, Yes, the information I received happened to be related to the two mysterious Mecha. Freedom Gouda, Holy Accord Gouda. These are the names of the two Mecha. One not only has terrifying high-speed performance, but it also has powerful long-range firepower, and the other has the ability to paralyze the eyes of the Mecha on a large scale. After briefly talking about the information he knew, Lars Yazzie said something that shocked Bucky Lulu. The above is nothing to be surprised about. For the Earth Alliance, for us Blue Persian Chrysanthemum, although these weapons are powerful, as long as we have time, we will inevitably develop them. It's just that the energy system used by the two Mecha is not the high-energy battery energy module that is popular today, but it is very likely to be a technology that has been sealed by those sinners. Nuclear reaction? Bucky Lulu guessed the answer at once. In this white-hot battlefield, if there was any powerful weapon that could decide the outcome, it would probably be the sealed nuclear weapon. The Bloody Valentine's Day incident was also caused by the nuclear bombs fired by the Earth Alliance fleet. The few fishes that escaped the net successfully broke through Zaf's interception net and blew up Yunus 7 in one fell swoop. If the regulator who personally sealed nuclear weapons and nuclear energy was in a hurry to obtain the final victory, it was very likely that they would really develop the technology to break the seal of neutron disruptors. Thinking of this, Bucky Lulu understood why Lars Yazzie strongly wanted the Angel to sail ahead of schedule. Your Excellency Yazzie Lars, I understand what you're thinking. It's just that the headquarters. Lars Mutta waved his hand indifferently when he saw that Bucky Lulu had understood his meaning. It's all right. It doesn't matter. Those guys from the headquarters wouldn't say anything. What's more, they should have told me that except for the combat state, you must listen to my orders at all times. Lars Mutta Yaz's words made Bucky Lulu raise her hand and press her hat slightly. Indeed, after Lars Mutta Yaz came to the Angel, the higher-ups of the headquarters did issue this order. And Bucky Lulu didn't have much objection to this order. Understood. Then, please sit down, Your Excellency Lars Yazzie. There will be some turbulence when the Angel starts. Hearing Bucky Lulu's reminder, Lars Mutta Yaz shrugged and sat back in his guest seat. Attention, all crew members of the Angel. The ship has completed the final inspection before sailing. Except for the necessary posts, the rest of the crew immediately return to the safety zone and wait for the Angel to sail. Under Bucky Lulu's order, the Angel born in the Ptolemy base finally set sail, and its first target turned out to be its sister ship, the Archangel. However, Lars Mutta Yaz, who was full of thoughts about whether the energy device carried by the Gouda and the Holy Accord Gouda was a nuclear reactor, didn't know. Just like how he spied on the Gundam through the intelligence channel, a pair of eyes hid in the shadows and watched the Dominion slowly leaving Ptolemy. Moreover, while the Angel left the moon, the information about the whereabouts of the Angel was also sent to the colonial satellite Mendel. Oh, interesting. In a room on the colonial satellite Mendel, a somewhat lazy female voice quietly sounded. The pair of eyes that seemed to be able to see through people's hearts stared at the note in her hand. This was the urgent information passed to her through the intelligence channel around the ring of Midgard. And the content of this information was about the future direction of the newly joined three-ship alliance. Although it was expected, I didn't expect Lars Mutta Yaz to discover the mystery of the Gouda in advance. It seems that there are also restless people on Zaf's side. After folding the note in her hand, her beautiful body also stretched out. Calculating the time, it should be time for Sir Siegel to leave Mendel and return to Earth. This information can be considered a good farewell gift. The successful alliance of the three-ship alliance made Siegel breathe a sigh of relief. It also meant that it was time for Siegel and the other non-combatants to return to Earth. In this case, as the leader around the ring of Midgard, Jemengard naturally had to follow Siegel and provide protection for him to return to Earth. Jemengard. Ray Minkai, who had just completed the maintenance of the Gouda program, was stopped by Jemengard on the elevator. Sir, this is the information we just intercepted. According to the information, the Earth Alliance seems to have completed the same type of warship as the Archangel in the lunar base, Ptolemy. Under the command of Lars Mutta Yaz, they are rushing here. In addition, it is worth noting that Lars Mutta Yaz seems to have seen through the mystery of the Gouda. Jemengard's information did not surprise Ray Minkai. In the eyes of others, this information might be very urgent. However, it made Ray Minkai breathe a sigh of relief. No matter how active he and the Gouda were in the previous battle, in the main process, the world was still moving forward at its original pace. Sir, you don't seem surprised? Ray Minkai's calm expression surprised Jemengard. Ray Minkai smiled. Jemengard, I'm afraid it's not just the situation on the Archangel and Ptolemy that made you come personally to report, right? Jemengard was slightly stunned, then he revealed a charming smile. As expected, I can't hide it from you, Sir Knight. Yes. In addition to the Archangel and Ptolemy, Zaft seems to have reacted. They are transferring 2 Nazca-class warships from the Yakin Duway defense line to form a pursuit fleet with the Waisalis. They are following the traces left behind by the Eternity and are rushing here. The Waisalis? Kreutzer's fleet? As expected, Patrick will send out his trusted subordinate. The information on both sides was indeed moving forward according to Ray Minkai's memory. However, Ray Minkai knew that behind this seemingly normal historical process, there might be something hidden that he did not know. Your Excellency, I've finally found you. At this time, since the fateful battle with Maltese, Matthias had been sorting out and collecting the relevant information since he left the clan. Especially the information about the imprint troop. Originally, Matthias thought that even if he gathered a strong enough mercenary force, he would inevitably encounter Maltese's imprint troops. But in fact, until the moment Maltese was shot to death, the imprint troops that Matthias speculated never appeared. Now, looking at the anxious-looking Matthias hurriedly running up the elevator, Lei Mingkai seemed to have understood something. "Matthias, did you find anything?" Yes. Your Excellency." Matthias took a deep breath and said while panting slightly, "That's right. I've finally found out where Maltese's disappeared imprint troop went." Rei Mingkai and Jemingard looked at each other, then looked at Matthias. "It's Miss E. It's the mastermind behind the scenes that Maltese called Miss E. It's her who transferred all of Maltese's imprint troops away." "Miss E." Matthias' words made Rei Mingkai's gaze freeze. Even if Matthias didn't say anything, Rei Mingkai had already guessed what happened next. Miss E, who had transferred the powerful imprinted informants away, was probably to control this power in her hands and prepare for the upcoming final battle? If that was the case, would the 3 NASCAR-class ships that participated in the pursuit of SS Eternity also have imprint troops? Thinking of this, Rei Mingkai also thought of the existence of the great god, Kreutzer. As a clone, Kreutzer would probably discover the existence of the imprint troops in a short period of time. As long as these imprint troops appeared beside him. "I know. You've worked hard, Matthias. Next, the 3-ship alliance will be making the final adjustment. If you don't want to participate in the battle, you can return to Earth with Speaker Siegel and the rest." The information brought by Jemingard and Matthias completed Rei Mingkai's puzzle of the current situation. Now, in Rei Mingkai's heart, a complete plan was already out. "No. My warship is also near Mendel, so I will participate in the battle. Your Excellency Rei Mingkai. The race has already become history." Matthias' words seemed to be true, and from his expression and gaze, he seemed to be serious. If he really wanted to support the 3-ship alliance, there was no harm in letting him participate in the battle at the recycling house and the giant snake's tail. Says Matthias, "Thank you very much for your assistance. In that case, please move together with Law and Song Yunxiu." "Understood. Then, forgive me for taking my leave." Jemingard watched Matthias's back as he hurried over and left. When he looked at Lei Mingkai again, he said slowly, "That's right, sir. The family that you ordered us to protect, we have already transferred them to Scandinavia. Real Flying Bird has entered the capital's public school under our arrangement. His sister, Mayu Flying Bird, has entered the SAS family as Miss Klia's playmate." Real Flying Bird? If Jemingard hadn't taken the initiative to mention it, Rei Mingkai, who had fought all the way, seemed to have forgotten that he had once ordered to pay attention to Real Flying Bird's family around the ring of Midgard. "Is that so? That's good. Jemingard. If there's no need, don't disturb that family." "Yes, sir." Jemingard lowered his head slightly and quickly glanced at the clock on the wall. "Sir, there's not much time. According to the time of the information, I'm afraid that Zaf's Nazca class will reach Mendel's vicinity first." "Is that so? Then, let me buy some time for you. The Nazca high-speed warship from the Yakin Due defense line, and the Dominion from the lunar base of Ptolemy. Both sides were like racers participating in a race, striving to be the first to rush to Mendel's side." Putting aside Mutta Yaz and Lars, Rei Mingkai had already guessed the masked man's intentions. His goal was probably not Mendel, nor was it the Archangel, Kusanagi, or even the eternity hidden in Mendel. It was the Dominion that had rushed here together. The elevator slowly left the Free Gauda's cockpit. The moment the cockpit closed, the Free Gauda activated. As the screen in front of him lit up, a father and daughter appeared on the screen. It was Lux and Siegel. Kai. Can you hear me? Lux had a communicator in her hand. She was calling for Ray Minkai. I can hear you, Lux. Don't worry. I'm just going out to open the way home for Uncle. The way home? The smart Lux immediately understood why Ray Minkai suddenly wanted to pilot the Free Gouda to attack. Is it Earth United? Or Zaf? Ray Minkai laughed loudly. Both. The Free Gouda and I will go back to intercept Zaf's fleet. After all, this fleet is led by that man, Law Lu Kreutzer. With that, Ray Minkai did not wait for Lux to respond and directly connected to the Archangel. The Archangel? I just received information. A Zaft fleet is leaving from the direction of Yakindue. Their target should be here. The Free Gouda and I will attack first to intercept this fleet and buy time for Speaker Siegel and the others to evacuate. No. If we only rely on the Free Gouda, I'm afraid it will be difficult to intercept Zaft's fleet. Margot objected. No. The Free Gouda is enough. The Archangel that has finished its preparations and supplies still has a mission. That is to intercept the warships coming from the direction of Ptolemy. After a pause, Ray Minkai told the truth. Captain Margot, the warship coming from the direction of Ptolemy is a warship of the same type as the Archangel. It is called the Main Angel, and her captain is Natale Bajiliolu. A few minutes later, the gorgeous light wings quietly bloomed. The steel giant wantonly stretched out its beautiful light wings and rushed out of space. It turned into a stream of light and flew in the direction of Yakindue's defense line. Chapter 634. At this moment, the pursuing fleet led by the Waisalis was in the midst of a battle. The Freedom Gouda had easily rescued the SS Eternity at the Yakindue defense line. Even if the Yakindue defense line deliberately kept silent, there were still a few lucky people who managed to survive the Freedom Gouda's attack. The existence of these lucky people was undoubtedly one of the key factors in spreading the news of the battle that ended in an instant. Yes, that's right. That was one of the key factors. In the beginning, most people thought that this was just the aftereffects of the Freedom Gundam. However, the battle data found in the black box recovered from the battle site made the onlookers realize how terrifying the Freedom Gundam was. Really, on the bridge of the Waisalis, the tactical table that was surrounded by the crew was playing the video of the battle that lasted for only 10 seconds. What a surprise! From the Alaskan base to the Battle of Ob, this airframe really can't be disappointed. Looking at the dark space on the screen, Kreutzer let out a heartfelt sigh when he saw Flash wiping out most of the troops chasing SS Eternity in the blink of an eye. Kreutzer had the right to sigh like this. Ever since the Freedom Gouda appeared in the sky above the Alaskan base, Kreutzer had been paying attention to the airframe's movement. Every time it appeared, it would become stronger and scarier than before. It was as if this wasn't a killing weapon created by humans. Instead, it was a terrifying organism with the ability to self-evolve. Kreutzer's sigh caused the surroundings to fall into silence. If the video was correct, then it meant that the pursuing fleet was very likely, certain to be attacked by this terrifying airframe. If they didn't want to encounter the Freedom Gouda, they could. That was to give up on the mission to chase down the SS Eternity. However, everyone standing here was unwilling to accept this outcome. Especially Yitzhak and Diego. As insiders, they knew who was piloting the Freedom Gouda. They also knew what the Freedom Gouda's actions would lead to. However, they did not understand why the person piloting the Freedom Gundam was doing this. That's right. Yitzhak, I heard you had an encounter with Nigel Amify in Alaska? Are you sure the opponent you encountered was really Nigger Amify himself? While everyone was silent, Kreutzer focused his attention on Yitzhak and Diego. Diego glanced at Yitzhak but didn't say anything. Instead, he gave Yitzhak the right to speak. As expected, the impulsive Isaac was irritated by a light touch. Yes, Captain Cruz. That man was indeed Nigel Amify. That's right. We can confirm that the enemy in front of us is that coward nigger Amify. Seeing Zack's resentful eyes, Cruz nodded slightly. Really? Well then, I can tell you some top-secret information now. After all, this will be the news that Speaker Sarah is about to announce. Kreutzer looked around, focused everyone's attention on him, and threw out a bombshell. In fact, when the Freedom Gouda was seized, our plant, Zaft, suffered more than that. Captain, could it be? Before Kreutzer could finish, Zack suddenly felt as if he had caught something. Kreutzer nodded and said in a deep voice, yes. With the help of the gang that seized the Freedom Gouda, nigger Amify, more than a dozen members of the Supreme Council, including Yuri Amify, were kidnapped in one fell swoop. Boom! Suddenly, the air on the bridge exploded. No one could imagine their ears. They didn't expect that the loss of plant, Zaft, was not as simple as a single airframe, but more than a dozen members of the Supreme Council. In the big picture, this would probably cause at least several colonial satellites of plant to fall into a terrible situation of sluggish operation, or even shutdown. Slowly telling the news, Kreutzer was very satisfied with the shock of Zack, Diego, and the others. Because, the more shocked they were, the more they would work hard in the next action. Kreutzer believed that among the people standing here, no one else would know except for himself. The departure of more than a dozen members of the Supreme Council, such as Yuri Amify, would not affect the operation of plant. On the contrary, with their departure, it would lead to Patrick Sarah's control of plant and the internal cleansing of Zaft, thus gathering all the power under Patrick Sarah's command. Captain Kreutzer, I have a request. Unsurprisingly, Zack took the initiative to ask. And this request, Kreutzer had already guessed. Zack, if you want to persuade nigger Amify to turn back in the middle of the battle, I wouldn't recommend it. You know, if you're distracted in battle, it's not as simple as losing your life. Kreutzer's persuasion did not move Zack. Instead, it made Zack's will more determined. In this regard, Kreutzer's heart was filled with joy, but he did not show it. Just that, he nodded awkwardly in response to Zack's request. Suddenly, Kreutzer frowned. How? Captain Kreutzer. Diego, who had been a bystander, actually noticed Kreutzer's strangeness at the first moment. No. It's just. Kreutzer subconsciously waved his hand, but stopped all movements in the middle of raising his hand. Just when everyone was wondering what Kreutzer's actions were, Kreutzer suddenly slammed the table and loudly ordered. Addis, notify everyone. The entire ship is in a first-level combat state. Quick, slow down a bit. The enemy is attacking. But there's nothing on the radar. Addis trembled all over. When conveying Kreutzer's order, he also raised his own doubts. Addis, looks like we've drawn the unluckiest lot. Kreutzer did not say it explicitly, but the people who were paying attention to Kreutzer clearly saw that Kreutzer's right index finger had stopped on a blurry photo on the tactical table. Free Gouda! Although the photo was blurry, Zack and Diego already understood. Diego, let's go. Zack turned and left the bridge on the spot, and Diego followed closely behind. The rest of the people also followed behind. Addis, prepare my sig goo. Although I don't have the confidence to catch up with that terrifying body, one more person means one more portion of strength. The silver mask reflected the light from the ceiling, causing Addis to be unable to see Kreutzer's face clearly. Yes, Captain Kreutzer. In the void, a stream of light flashed across the universe where the colonial satellite Mendel was located. Lei Minkai furrowed his brows slightly. It seemed that he was puzzled by the sudden electric shock just now. State 0, did you notice anything unusual just now? Free Gouda's radar did not discover anything, and he did not feel anything unusual either. It was as if the sudden electric shock was just an illusory illusion. No, there's nothing unusual. As usual, White Cat State 0, who was lying on Ray Minkai's shoulder, wagged its tail slightly, and a trace of doubt appeared in its golden eyes. "Are you worried about your little princess?" Not only did White Cat State Zero not entangled with Ray Minkai's electric shock, it even tried to change the topic to Lakis. Ray Minkai shook his head slightly, and just as he was about to refute White Cat State Zero, he suddenly realized something. "Kreutzer? Kreutzer found us. How is that possible? Those broken ship's radars can't detect such a long distance." White Cat State Zero was the first to not believe Ray Minkai's words. One must know that White Cat State Zero was always paying attention to the surrounding situation. If Free Gouda was targeted, White Cat State Zero would definitely be the first to know. No. It's not Nazca's radar, it's human intuition. State Zero. In the void, Free Gouda transformed into a stream of light and rushed out of Mendel's universe like a meteor, heading straight for the pursuing fleet led by the Waisalis. In just a short period of time, the pursuing fleet that had just released most of the MS was stimulated by the ear-piercing radar warning. "Report. The target has appeared. It's Free Gouda. Its speed is so fast. Captain Kreutzer." As the shocked voices sounded, Kreutzer raised his hand expressionlessly and slashed down. "All ships, the aerial battle begins. The MS troops that have been released, intercept Free Gouda immediately. I don't care what you do, you must take down Free Gouda." Looking at the rapidly advancing icon on the main screen, Kreutzer was silent. The sudden intuition just now was not wrong. But the only mistake was that the pursuing fleet was too weak. "Addis, I will attack now. The fleet will be under your command. Also, if it's not necessary, don't go too far. That airframe won't care about how scary the Waisali's anti-air firepower is." "Yes, Captain Kreutzer." Addis was shocked by Kreutzer's warning. Now, there was still some time before Kreutzer's Sigurd attack. But in front of the pursuing fleet, the battle had already begun. Just by watching the battle footage, they realized how scary Free Gouda was, but it wasn't enough for the pilots, including Yitzhak and Diego, to clearly understand how scary Free Gouda was. In just the first brief encounter, 2 jewels were split into 2 and exploded in the blink of an eye. "Yitzhak, Diego? We meet again." Free Gouda, who had destroyed 2 gold N as soon as he attacked, made a flexible maneuver in the void and stopped, looking at the dual Gouda driven by Yitzhak from afar. It wasn't until now that Yitzhak truly saw Free Gouda's full appearance. Pure white limbs decorated with red and blue paint, with a golden, sharp V-shaped antenna head. In the black, there was a touch of red torso, and the pair of wings of light behind him that were blooming with brilliant light. At this moment, the powerful and terrifying MS that appeared in front of them made all the pilots who saw its true appearance couldn't help but feel that this, perhaps, was the posture that the most powerful MS in the world should have. Then, that pair of wings is against the rules. Yitzhak. Diego looked at the pair of wings of light behind Free Gouda and couldn't help but gasp. Could it be that I really have to be an enemy of the terrifying MS? Kai. Nigger. Who was piloting the Freedom Gundam. If you're still alive, make a sound for me. In the next second, Yitzhak's scolding voice spread throughout the communication channel. What responded to him was a sword light. Buzz. Although the low roar emitted by the high-frequency vibrating sword blade could not be transmitted to others' ears, the sword blade that reflected the radiance of the stars from the distant other side was so terrifying. This was the answer. As long as he saw the blade that reflected the cold sword light, Diego would give such an answer in his heart. That's fine too. At least, we don't have to worry about that military academy time anymore. Diego was quite open-minded. After waking up, he immediately launched his first attack. Boom! Storm Gouda raised his right arm, and the 350mm anti-armor shotgun fired at Free Gouda on the spot. However, as the cannonball that was developed against the armored target flew through the void and arrived in front of Free Gouda, a cold light bloomed. Boom! 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 In an instant, Free Gouda was drowned by a violent explosion. However, looking at the explosion of fire that drowned Free Gouda, not only did everyone not take advantage of the victory to chase after him, they instead immediately drove their bodies to distance themselves from Free Gouda. That was because they had clearly seen that terrifying scene. Storm Gouda's attack, unexpectedly, it was slashed apart by Free Gouda's sword. The ball of fire that drowned it was just the residual light of the cannonball that had been hacked apart. It was impossible to hurt Free Gouda himself. Pfft! The radars of the rapidly retreating Dual Gouda and Storm Gouda suddenly locked onto a certain direction. There was no target at all. However, the image displayed on the radar was a target with an extremely terrifying speed. Not good. Hide well. Yitzhak's eyes widened as he roared hoarsely. He roared a warning that was completely useless. In the darkness, another ray of cold light suddenly appeared. On the right side of the formation, Jean N, who was half a beat slower, was still unable to escape the fate of certain death. Yitzhak, Free Gouda wants to stall for time. I know. But do you have a way? Diego. As long as that bastard is willing, he can kill us in an instant. Yitzhak's roar gradually became hoarse, but he became more and more unwilling. This guy must be saying, look, if it weren't for my old feelings, you would have died long ago. Bastard! Chapter 635. Stalling for time? Yitzhak's guess was not correct. Rayminkai's goal was not to stall for time. Among the fleet, other than the Waisalis and the other Nazca that had released their MS, the last Nazca had a strange aura. That ship did not carry an MS? White Cat State Zero also felt the strange aura. No. But we will find out. Freedom Gouda's light wings retracted slightly. The moment its speed decreased, it also dived downwards and avoided the Waisali's attack. The attack from the two 120mm high-energy retractable fire cannons brushed past Freedom Gouda and went straight into the dark void. Following closely behind were the 450mm vertical launchers that fired anti-air missiles. As the first force to use an MS, perhaps they had a theory on how to defend against an MS attack. When Freedom Gouda showed a slight intention to charge towards the fleet formed by the Nazca-class high-speed warships, the other party immediately exploded with powerful anti-air firepower in an attempt to stop Freedom Gouda. It also created an opportunity for Dual Gouda and Storm Gouda to chase after Freedom Gouda. However, looking at the incoming missile cluster, Freedom Gouda just waved his hand and put the high-frequency vibration sword in his hand into the weapon rack behind his shoulder. At the same time, he also took out the Sirius beam rifle that was hanging behind his waist. Ka! The moment Freedom Gouda's unique multi-lock system panel popped up, the missile cluster was locked on. Then, it was the moment Freedom Gouda's rainbow cannon exploded. Blinding light beams. Roaring electromagnetic cannons. Freedom Gouda's M100 whale plasma beam cannon and the M15 sailfish electromagnetic cannons on his waist continuously fired. Among them, Gouda's Sirius beam rifle was also assisting him, blowing up all the targets that whale and swordfish could not reach. In the blink of an eye, dozens of dazzling suns rose in front of Freedom Gouda, causing the gold pilots who had never participated in Asraga to be stunned. That fellow is actually so arrogant. Isaac was furious. The dual Gundam sped up and rushed forward. Isaac, wait for me. Diego was shocked and hurriedly drove Storm Gouda to chase after him. In that exchange just now, Diego had already understood that the disparity in strength between the enemy and me was so great that it could not be made up for. They had indeed drawn the worst lot. Buzz. Isaac kept pulling the trigger, trying to drive Dual Gouda to hit Freedom Gouda, but he never succeeded. Gouda Dual's attack did not notice Freedom Gouda Dual's attention at all. That attack that seemed to contain the anger in Isaac's heart Gouda Freedom Gouda Duel only needed to turn his body slightly to make all of Izak's attacks miss. No matter how angry Izak was in his heart, no matter how hard he tried to chase after Freedom Gouda, the result was that Gouda Duel was falling further and further behind. Diego! Where are you? Still not coming. The Waisalis is going to be sunk. Izak clenched his teeth and growled hoarsely. Coming. Diego sighed in his heart. However, his hands were still not slow. At the same time that Storm Gouda Duel caught up, he also combined the weapons on his left and right arms, locking onto Freedom Gouda Duel with a combination of ultra-high-pulse long-range sniper rifles and firing explosively. This was a method that could be adopted when his mobility was relatively behind that of Freedom Gouda Duel. At the same time, it was also Diego's final effort. This was because Freedom Gouda Duel, with the help of the powerful thrust of the wing-type Radiance Bearer, was already in existence that Storm Gouda Duel could not hope to reach. In the past, the cannon that could sink the Earth Alliance's main battleship in one shot was so powerless at this moment. Just like Duel Gouda Duel just now, no matter how Storm Gouda Duel locked onto Freedom Gouda Duel, he could only launch a futile attack at the moment of firing. This bastard! The attacks failed again, and Diego began to feel a trace of anger, but there was nothing he could do. Freedom Gouda Duel didn't seem to put them in his eyes. Izak, Diego, continue to restrain Freedom Gouda Duel. Let me do the rest. At this moment, Kreutzer's voice finally appeared. In the next second, the silver-white body flew out of the Waisalis and appeared in front of Freedom Gouda Duel. The feeling of electric shock erupted from the depths of his mind and suddenly spread from the depths of his consciousness to all parts of his body. La Lu Kreutzer. Ray Minkai. Without introducing themselves, everything was clear the moment their gazes touched each other's bodies. What a surprise! The last compatriot of Unius 7. What is it that made you stand on the opposite side of our Zaft? Kreutzer's voice actually sounded on the public channel without any concealment. Captain Kreutzer? Yitzhak and Diego were stunned. They didn't expect Kreutzer to do such a thing. You should know. Ray Minkai didn't know what kind of trick Kreutzer was playing. However, his reaction to this was to have Freedom Gouda Duel raise the Sirius beam rifle in his hand in an instant and fire 3 consecutive shots at Kreutzer's Higu. There was no surprise. Higu avoided Freedom Gouda Duel's attack. It should be said that Kreutzer didn't have much hope for his ability to interfere with Freedom Gouda Duel's actions. Buzz. Buzz! Freedom Gouda Duel's shooting didn't stop. Even Higu kept dodging Freedom Gouda Duel's shooting with dazzling maneuvers. Others might not be able to see it, but the two sides knew that this was just a test. Swish. After a round of shooting, the light wings on the Freedom Gundam's back suddenly expanded by a few degrees. At the same time that afterimages appeared in the void, Freedom Gouda Duel rushed in front of Higu. Coming! A black shadow suddenly rushed out from Higu's left arm and went straight for Freedom Gouda Duel. Swish! A cold light suddenly appeared. The black shadow that rushed out from Higu's left arm was split into two on the spot and exploded with a loud bang. The smoke formed by the violent explosion instantly blocked Freedom Gouda Duel's vision, causing a slight delay in his perception of the outside world. And this slight delay was the result that Kreutzer wanted. And the sacrifice to create this opportunity was actually Higu's grim shield. In the midst of the explosion, the MM-7's 76mm heavy assault machine gun in Higu's hand raised its black muzzle. PS armor? But, so what if it's this kind of attack? Da-da-da! The trigger was pulled, and the whistling bullets rushed into the smoke that had yet to dissipate, causing an even more violent explosion. Da-da-da-da! When the flames of different lengths kept flashing at the muzzle, Kreutzer didn't hesitate to drive Higu away again. Only by maintaining a sufficient distance as much as possible could he have a chance to win. Freedom Gouda Duel's speed, It was really too fast. Sure enough, Higu's violent attack didn't achieve the result that Kreutzer imagined. The moment the heavy assault machine gun's magazine fired the last bullet, the smoke that engulfed Freedom Gao de Duel gradually dissipated, revealing the battered shield and Freedom Gao de Duel, who didn't have any external injuries. TSK. This kind of attack is ineffective? Seeing that the violent attack just now didn't hurt Freedom Gao de Duel, Kreutzer didn't even think and decisively flew towards his own warship. And what was worth thinking about was that the warship that Kreutzer approached wasn't his warship, Waisalis, but the Nazca-class high-speed warship that didn't release the MS from beginning to end. Seeing this scene, Ray Minkai suddenly frowned. Who exactly is Kreutzer? Ray Minkai was very clear about this. Logically speaking, approaching the Waisalis was much closer than approaching the Nazca-class warship that was watching from the sidelines. Borrowing a knife to kill? Perhaps this was Kreutzer's goal? But after Ray Minkai saw through this goal, he actually took advantage of the situation and accelerated to chase after Kreutzer. As expected, when Higu and Freedom Gao de Duel approached one after another, the Nazca-class high-speed warship that was watching from the sidelines finally made a move. Two 120mm high-energy retractable cannons were quickly raised and locked onto Freedom Gao de Duel, who was chasing behind Higu, firing a barrage of shot. Following closely behind, there were 66mm dual railguns and 58mm automatic fire god cannons that formed a medium to close-range anti-air firepower net. What was worth noting was that other than the two 120mm high-energy retractable cannons that weren't aimed at Higu, the other weapons didn't seem to take Higu's existence into consideration and didn't deliberately leave a safe path for Higu to retreat. Instead, they treated Higu as an enemy that invaded the warship's anti-air firepower net. This scene was seen by Ray Minkai. Is he really borrowing a knife to kill? In his memory, during the three-party encounter near Mendel, Kreutzer had also secretly sold one of the Nazca-class high-speed warships and the MS that was carried by the pursuing fleet. Could it be that this Nazca-class high-speed warship that didn't seem to be friendly with Kreutzer's side was the warship that was sold? This hypothesis was quickly answered. In the midst of the all-out attack, the Nazca-class high-speed warship's takeoff runway began to unfold. Then, three MS-class fighters rushed out of the Nazca-class high-speed warship. Kinnan. The MS carried by this strange Nazca-class high-speed warship was still gold. However, the equipment carried by these three Kinnan wasn't owned by Kreutzer's Kinnan. High-mobility Kinnan. This was a derivative model designed based on ZAF's current mass production Kinnan. The production number was unknown, but it was a model specifically designed for ace pilots to use. In other words, the three high-mobility Kinnan that flew out of the Nazca-class high-speed warship were the ACE team formed by three elite pilots? Imprint Man? When Ray Minkai noticed the secret behind the high-mobility Kinnan, this name suddenly flashed in his mind. A strange aura, and the high-mobility Kinnan that symbolized ACE. Perhaps it was all pointing to one thing. That was, this Nazca-class high-speed warship that didn't seem to fit in with Kreutzer's side was probably the reinforcements that came to rescue Maltese. If this was the case, Ray Minkai indeed had to deal with it. In the midst of the roaring gunfire, Freedom Gao de suddenly abandoned Higu, who was being chased by him, and flew toward the Nazca-class high-speed warship. Kreutzer, who was relieved of the pressure, looked back and a smile appeared on his face. As expected of the Knight of Guardian. Sure enough, as long as you discover the existence of those people, you will prioritize them. Yes. After discovering the existence of the Imprint Man, Freedom Gao Da's first move was a thunderous attack. Even though the Nazca-class high-speed battleship was frantically firing all its weapons and firepower at the Freedom Gundam, the Freedom Gundam was still able to hold its ground. Even though the three Zaft ACE mechs quickly occupied the best attacking position and launched an attack, the Zaft ACE mechs still couldn't do anything. Ray Minkai. Even Freedom Gao De didn't panic at all. Instead, he calmly moved left and right from the gunfire and directly leaped above the Nazca-class high-speed warship. The multicolored cannons fired like divine punishment, sending the Nazca-class high-speed warship, as well as the 3 highly mobile gold graces, into the depths of hell beyond redemption. The light beam dissipated. The electric arc of the electromagnetic cannon gradually disappeared. What remained in this space was the final afterglow of the Nazca-class high-speed warship being swept away by the explosion and disintegration. Looking at the sinking Nazca-class high-speed warship, Kreutzer smiled slightly, but immediately said in a deep voice, "The battle failed. Let's evacuate. This airframe is not something we can contend against. Yitzhak, let's go." Diego was surprised by the terror of Freedom Gouda, and anxiously shouted for Yitzhak to evacuate. He was afraid that Yitzhak would rush up to fight the Gundam in a fit of rage again. That would definitely kill people. Yitzhak also knew this. Even if he was unwilling, Yitzhak still gritted his teeth and retreated. "Are you not going to pursue?" White Cat State Zero looked at the direction where Kreutzer and the others retreated. No. This is considered a favor. Lao Lu Kreutzer. It's better for him to live for the time being. The existence of Miss E was like a haze hanging over Zaf's head. If there was a hidden danger in this haze, it would be Lao Lu Kreutzer. Even if Ray Minkai and Kreutzer's goals were completely opposite, Kreutzer's existence was one of the key reasons why Miss E was unable to completely grasp Zaft and Plant. In the distance, Plant's capital, April City. The tea table filled with delicious snacks and fragrant black tea did not make people feel comfortable. Instead, the solemn atmosphere made the tempting aroma of the snacks and black tea a little bleak. "Really? Is Maltese already dead?" Miss E. Alice Pompey nodded with a solemn expression. "Fortunately, we brought the imprint troops over in advance. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would have suffered some losses." Mia looked at the pair of twin sisters who were guarding her and felt a little relieved. The imprint troops were the core combat power of their next plan. If this core combat power suffered losses, it was likely that the plan would change. Chapter 636. Far away from Earth, far away from the busy space routes, in a remote universe, was the graveyard of the broken colonial satellites that had been abandoned by humans for a long time. In this vast space, the number of colonial satellites pushed into the graveyard continued to increase, and they were also destroyed by scavengers who came to the graveyard. However, even so, these colonial satellites still filled this graveyard, becoming witnesses to humanity's march into the universe. "Dolly!" In the dark passageway, a small figure flapped its wings and flew past. It slowly landed at the end of the passageway, in front of the iron door that was unlatched. "Found it!" Among the debris floating in the air, a pair of hands covered in dust but holding a bottle of medicine tightly appeared. Behind the pair of hands was a face that heaved a sigh of relief. "Fortunately, the fever medicine hasn't expired yet." Kira looked at the expiration date on the bottle with joy. This was the fever medicine he found after rummaging around the port of this colonial satellite. Since young, the strong physique of an adjuster kept Kira away from most diseases. Therefore, Kira was a little flustered in the face of colds and fevers, which were extremely common to humans. Normally, in areas where humans were active, he would naturally be able to find suitable medicine. But now, the place where Kira was at was nothing more than a broken colonial satellite abandoned by humans. It was already fortunate to be able to find a fever medicine that could still be taken. "Dolly!" The moment Kira pushed open the iron door, the mechanical bird Dolly, who had been waiting outside for a while, spread its wings and landed on Kira's shoulder. "Dolly, we found the medicine. Let's go back." The antipyretic in the dusty hands was not for Kira herself. It was for LH-033, who suddenly fainted after leaving Mendel. Kira didn't know what was going on inside. As an adjuster, LH-033 still fainted. However, he faintly sensed that this might be related to Lux Klein. Which one was the real Lux Klein? Kira might not care too much. However, he had to let LH-033 regain consciousness first. Otherwise, if this continued, even if Holy Accord Gouda had the ability to return to plant, LH-033 would not be able to last until then. The dark passage did not stop Kira. Even though there were some floating objects in the pitch-black tunnel, Kira could easily pass through them with his nimble body. He walked to the other side of the tunnel, where a glimmer of light gradually appeared in the residential area. Other than some residual energy in the residential area, the energy in the other areas of this unknown colonial satellite had been depleted. At that time, in order to let LH-033 have a good place to rest, Kira had piloted the Holy Accord Gouda and directly broke through the gate that had been locked due to energy exhaustion. It was only after rushing into the port that they found this place. Thinking about his next plan, Kira walked forward and finally stepped into the only place on this ruined colonial satellite that still had light. Standing in front of the slightly rusty door, Kira took a few deep breaths. After calming himself down, he pushed the iron door open. Creak! The moment the teeth-numbing sound of metal rubbing against each other was heard, Kira stopped. Then, when Kira pushed the iron door again, he used even less strength than before. However, the sound of metal rubbing against each other was still there, but it was slightly softer. Kira, who was a little helpless, could only frown. There was nothing else he could do. Fortunately, the person lying in the room was not woken up because of this. However, when Kira returned to the person lying on the wooden bed that was covered with a temporary emergency blanket that was somewhat rotten at the edge, Kira had a thought. How great would it be if the sound just now could wake this person up? Dolly! The mechanical bird standing on Kira's shoulder jumped lightly and landed on the edge of the bed. It tilted its head and looked at the sleeping face. Dolly! Don't be noisy. Lux, you need to rest. Kira raised his finger and signaled his mechanical pet not to make any noise. He then took out the drinking water bottle in the corner of the room. However, he was suddenly in a dilemma. Suddenly, a murmur caused the mechanical bird standing on the edge of the bed to fly up and hover above the bed. Lux, Lux, Lux. How are you? Kira, who was worrying about how to feed LH-033 medicine, hurriedly went forward and passed the drinking water bottle over. After carefully letting LH-033 drink a mouthful of water, he nervously looked at her reaction. Kira, are you beside me? A strange flush appeared on LH-033's face. It was not hard to see that she was not in a good state. Kira gently let LH-033 lean on his chest and said softly, I'm right here. Lux, how are you feeling? Without waiting for LH-033 to respond, Kira casually placed the water bottle in his hand to the side. He picked up the medicine bottle that he had spent a lot of effort to find and shook it a few times. This is fever medicine. It was not easy for me to find it. You will get better. Lux. Fever medicine? Although she was calling Kira's name, LH-033's situation was really not optimistic. Listening to LH-033's meaningless and intermittent murmurs, Kira became more and more worried. Right now, the only thing Kira could do was to let LH-033 take the fever medicine. After that, he could only continue to search for medicine that could be used, or wait. Fortunately, the process of giving the medicine was very smooth. After gently placing LH-033 back on the bed and covering her with a blanket, Kira was silent for a while. He seemed to be struggling, but in the end, he still turned around and chose to go out and continue searching for medicine. Kira, don't go. But before he could take a step, the corner of his clothes was suddenly pulled by someone. It was LH-033. Lux? Kira, who turned around to look, was shocked and worried. Even if the medicine was effective, It was impossible for LH-033 to regain consciousness in the blink of an eye. With the current situation, could it be that? Kira, don't go. Talk to me. The weakness of her body caused LH-033 to lose most of her strength. Just speaking took up all of her strength. Lux, you need to rest now. I'll go find medicine for you right now. Kira once again sat by the bed, gently took the corner of his clothes from LH-033's hands, and placed LH-033's hands under the blanket. No. This is fine. Didn't I already take medicine? This is fine, talk to me. LH-033's weak yet pitiful appearance made Kira unable to refuse. In the end, he still chose to return to the bed. After a slight hesitation, he placed his hand on LH-033's forehead. And I'm right here. Thank you, Kira. Then, there was a moment of silence. Kira was waiting, and LH-033, who was lying on the bed, seemed to be accumulating her strength, silently waiting for something. Time, who knew how long had passed? Kira did not know, nor did he want to know. In his heart, he was anxious that LH-033's desire to quickly suppress all other emotions, but under LH-033's pleading, he waited for her to continue. Kira. In the silent atmosphere, LH-033 opened her mouth again. I'm here. Kira replied gently. The redness on LH-033's face gradually deepened, but a trace of a bitter smile appeared. LH-033 seemed to be hesitating, but in the next moment she spoke the truth. I'm not Lux Klein. Kira. A trace of surprise flashed through Kira's eyes, but he immediately recovered his calmness. Is that so? I know. That seemingly perfunctory tone made LH-033 open her eyes forcefully and raise her head to look at Kira. Kira. I'm serious. As the narration progressed, LH-033 seemed to gradually return to normal. Eyes, manners, tone, everything returned to how it was in the past. This abnormal change made Kira's heart tighten. I know. Actually, when that person appeared, I already knew. When she confronted Gouda on the Archangel, Kira had already understood some things. Recalling the time when Ray Minkai and Lux, who appeared in the image of Audrey, boarded the Archangel, it was just when the Silver Wind incident broke out. Recalling Ray Minkai's behavior along the way, Kira might have already understood. However, the current Kira did not care about that. Who was the real Lux Klein? It was not important to Kira. He only knew that the girl in front of him was the one who saved him from the darkness. No. Kira, you don't know. LH-033 moved her body slightly, but she was unable to move at all. This is a conspiracy. I am not the real Lux Klein. LH-033 weakly described the conspiracy that shrouded her. I am just a person who was artificially created. Person who was artificially created? Kira was stunned and blurted out. A clone? The bitter smile on LH-033's face became deeper and deeper. More or less. However, when I was artificially created, I already had Lux Klein's appearance, figure, and even most of her memories. In the eyes of ordinary people, perhaps I am the real Lux Klein. Kira was silent. However, her silence was unable to stop LH-033's narration. The pink young lady lying in his embrace was like a human who was about to step into death and was about to hand over everything she knew to someone else, sad, while Kira was being told everything by LH-033, the Archangel, which had encountered the main angel in the outer region of Mendel, was in a fierce battle. The Heresy Gouda, which was piloted by Mu, and the Dark Assault, which was piloted by Neil, were struggling under the siege of 3 roaches. The Archangel was also in a passive position under the fierce attacks of the main angel, which was led by Bakilialu. Mirialia. What's the situation on the Free Gao Da's side? The SS Eternity, which had rushed out of plant, had not completed its final adjustments, and the grass fiend seemed to have been trapped by the trap that Bakilialu had set up beforehand. This forced the heresy team to return to the grass fiend, and they were unable to support the Archangel in time. As a result, the Technician Maul was suppressed by Bakilialu, who had undergone strict warship command training. We haven't contacted him yet. However, since just now, there have been no signs of abnormalities in the region that the Free Gouda is heading to. Ever since the Archangel encountered the main angel, Mirialia had been trying to find traces of the Free Gouda. Although she had not been able to contact him, Mirialia, who had been paying attention to the Free Gouda, was keenly aware of the signs of abnormalities in the region that had returned to normal. Is that so? It seems that we still have to hold on for a while. If the abnormalities in the battle had disappeared, then with the astonishing speed of the Free Gouda, they would definitely be able to rescue the Archangel in time. However, before that, the Archangel had to hold on for a while longer. On the other side of the two sister ships of the same model fighting each other, Mu's Special Heresy and Nigger's Dark Assault were fighting back to back against the attacks of the three roaches. Hey, brother Nigger, do you have a way to get rid of that flying blackbird? As a fighter pilot, Mu was very clear about the importance of controlling the rhythm in a battle. The high mobility of the Gouda, as well as the tacit understanding between the three roaches, made Mu and Nigger somewhat familiar with each other, but they failed to cultivate a tacit understanding and suffered a lot. I'll try. Although Nigger agreed, he was not confident in his own heart. Right now, Pitch Black Assault was being closely watched by the Forbidden Gundam. Whether it was the railgun or the plasma beam cannon, they could not break through the defense of the Forbidden Gouda. Not to mention, under the watchful eyes of the Forbidden Gouda, they launched an attack on the Gouda. Krot. That black airframe is watching you. Go away. That's mine. Sure enough, when Nigger tried to feign a shot to deceive the Forbidden Gundam to attack and seize the Gundam, Shunny saw through Nigger's actions at a glance. Furthermore, he even let Krot go away with a strange smile. What? You're watching me? That's mine. Shunny. Instead of retreating after a single attack and leaving the follow-up attacks to his teammates, the Gundam robber charged out from the bottom right of the Forbidden Gundam, blocking the path between the Forbidden Gundam and the Pitch Black Assault. Immediately afterward, the Forbidden Gouda's figure moved, and the Mjolnir firing pin equipped with the shattered ball smashed towards the Dark Assault. This attack came with a menacing momentum, but it fell into Nigger's trap. At the moment when the shattered ball hit, the railgun equipped by the Dark Assault slightly moved up and fired a round of continuous rapid fire. This was not Nigger's intention to risk his life to launch an attack on the Forbidden Gouda. Instead, he used the continuous rapid fire of the railgun to forcibly interrupt the attack of the Forbidden Gouda's firing pin. Boom! Boom! Every shell fired by the railgun accurately hit the forbidden ball, and the powerful kinetic energy and explosive shock wave of the explosion made the attack of the forbidden ball pause for a moment. Then, in the dissipating smoke, two muzzles exuding a cold aura pointed at the Forbidden Gouda at a very close distance. General, the opportunity was now or never. Nigger decisively pulled the trigger. The moment the fatal brilliance lit up, this bitter battle finally ushered in the opportunity to reverse. Chapter 637. The moment the plasma flashed, the robber Gouda's left and right arms were cut off by two plasma beams on the spot. At the same time, it was also affected by the aftermath, triggering a series of chain explosions. Boom! In the midst of the crazy sparks, the robber Gouda that had been harassing and attacking Nigger and Mu with its high mobility suddenly lost its combat effectiveness. Krot? Shocked, Xianai hurriedly rushed over. However, he was interrupted by several beams of light coming from the left, forcing the Gundam Sia was piloting to turn around and face the direction of the beams with its shield, which could distort the beams of light. This delay gave Nigger the opportunity to retreat immediately. With the strong thrust of the backpack, the robber Gouda easily returned to Mu's M1 Heretic. Boy! Well done! In the beginning, Mu only hoped that Nigger could force the robber Gouda to retreat. But he did not expect Nigger to seize the opportunity and severely injure the robber Gouda. It's just a moment of luck. After Nigger piloted the robber to meet up with Mu, he slowly breathed a sigh of relief. After re-entering space, Ray Minkai had privately mentioned the 3 roaches to Nigger. In particular, the 3 roaches would suddenly turn against their teammates in the middle of a fierce battle, which was mentioned by Ray Minkai many times. Therefore, in the attack just now, Nigger tried to use himself as bait to attract the robber Gouda and prevent the robber Gouda from fighting among themselves. Although the two did not fight among themselves, the attack just now did indeed create a great opportunity for Nigger. Good luck is also a kind of strength. Mu nodded, but his attention was more focused on the robber Gouda and the calamity Gouda. The severely injured robber Gouda was very likely to stimulate the pilots of the 2 Gouda and make them do crazy things. In fact, this was indeed the case. There was no need to talk about Sia, who was piloting Gouda looking at Disaster Gouda's pilot, Olga. It was not easy for him to escape from the scythe of the Grim Reaper. After spending a large amount of medical supplies as the price, he successfully walked out of the hospital bed and returned to the cockpit of Calamity Gouda. Olga, who had such an experience, saw with his own eyes the miserable state of Gouda. His face twisted. Olga, who had just walked through the door of death, didn't become fearless of death. Instead, he became even more fearful of death. He was even more fearful that he would be lying on a sickbed again, and those people in white coats would inject unknown drugs into his body as they wished. No, no, no! Krot, you can't die. Fear, anger, tears gushed up Olga's face like a fountain, distorting his features to an extremely frightening degree. Under the influence of this huge emotion, Disaster Gouda turned around abruptly. He didn't care whether the Dark Assault and M1 Heresy were locked on or not. He just launched a crazy attack. There were 2 125mm high-energy long-range beam cannons on his back, 580mm multiple-phase energy cannon on his chest, together with the 337mm plasma rocket launcher in his hand. They poured madly towards the Dark Assault and M1 Heresy as if they were free. In just a short moment, the location of the Dark Assault and M1 Heresy had been covered by the terrible firepower of Disaster Gouda. Of course, this attack, which erupted out of anger and panic, was disorganized. It could not threaten Nigger and Mu at all. However, when Mu saw Disaster Gouda's performance, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He was not afraid of crazy enemies. Madness was scary. But after the madness, no matter how powerful the enemy was, it was just an exhausted prey. Nigger, hold on a little longer. Pay attention to the ban on Gouda. Mu did not forget to remind Nigger while driving the body to avoid the attack from Disaster Gouda. Understood. Of course, Niggal understood this. However, he was not worried about the next battle, because there was already a signal coming from the Archangel. In the dark and boundless space, a stream of light quietly appeared. It appeared from the other side of Mendel, bypassed Mendel at an extremely fast speed, and went straight to the asteroid belt where the Archangel and the Angel were fighting. Nigger and Major Mu teamed up to fight against the 3 roaches? On the screen in front of Ray Minkai was an extremely magnified picture. Although the details of the battle could not be seen clearly, judging from the extremely intense and relatively moderate frequency of the flames, Nigger and Mu had gradually gained control of the situation. Right now, the only thing that needed support was the Archangel. SS Eternity. This is Ray Minkai. Please answer if you copy. Gouda, who plunged into the asteroid belt, sent a message to Mendel. The next second, Lux's face appeared on the screen. This is SS Eternity. It will take 20 minutes to complete the final adjustment. Please hold on. 20 minutes? Ray Minkai frowned slightly and seemed a little surprised. Hearing this, Lux shook her head helplessly. Sorry. Perhaps because SS Eternity was in an emergency, some faults were left behind. Is that so? Then, leave the rest to me and Gouda. The fact that SS Eternity could not fight in a short period of time did not affect Ray Minkai's plan. After all, from the beginning, Ray Minkai did not include SS Eternity in the battle sequence. Right now, the first thing the Freedom Gundam had to do was to rescue the grass tie. On the other side of the asteroid belt that was flickering with flames, the specially equipped heretic that Carrie was piloting was leading the 3 heretics in anxiously removing the cables that were restricting the grass hound's movements. However, because these cables were specially solidified, the beam sabers and beam guns of the M1 heretics were unable to sever them in a short period of time. The only way was to use the beam sabers to slowly melt and sever them. Damn it! Can't it be faster? Carrie, who had lost her original assault Capricorn, could only pilot the specially equipped heretic developed by the Dawn Society. She gritted her teeth and looked unwillingly at the battlefield where the Archangel was located. Judging from the constantly flickering flames and the occasional explosion of rubble caused by the battle between the 2 ships, the battle between the sister ships had reached a white-hot point. If there were no external forces involved, this battle would inevitably lead to a disastrous conclusion. Carrie, move aside. Suddenly, a voice came through the communication channel. First, Carrie was surprised, then she was delighted. Ray Minkai? Is that you? It's me. Move aside. Move further away. Freedom Gao Da's sword is very sharp. When Ray Minkai's voice came from the communication channel, everyone, including Carrie, saw the stream of light that appeared behind the grass hound. It was a special radiance that only the winged radiance bearers possessed. It was Freedom Gouda. Everyone, move aside. Zasaka, after the cables are removed, do your best to support the Archangel at full speed. The appearance of Freedom Gouda undoubtedly meant that the grass hound, which had fallen into a trap, would welcome the dawn of liberation. It seemed slow at first, but then it happened quickly. As everyone responded, Freedom Gouda's stream of light had already rushed behind the grass hound. The moment Freedom Gouda brandished the high-frequency vibration blade in his hand, a cold light left behind a series of cold afterimages around the grass hound. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, Freedom Gouda and the high-frequency vibration blade in his hand left behind afterimages and sword flashes around the grass hound. The grass hound first trembled, then without hesitation, rushed towards the sector where the Archangel was at full force. At the same time, Zasaka decisively ordered. Grass hound. Positron siege cannon. Ready. Target. Dominion Angel. Right now, the only way to interrupt this white-hot battle between 2 ships of the same type was to intervene in this battle with brute force. In the light emitted by the positron siege cannon, the light wings on Freedom Gouda's back expanded again. The meteor had appeared. At this moment, Freedom Gouda seemed to have turned into a meteor, shuttling through the asteroid belt at an astonishing speed. He was the first to rush into the battlefield between the Archangel and Dominion Angel. However, Freedom Gouda, who penetrated the battlefield at an extremely fast speed, was not immediately captured by the Archangel and Dominion Angel. Whether it was the people on the Archangel or Dominion Angel, they only realized that an airframe had penetrated the battlefield when the afterimage left by Freedom Gouda appeared in the center of the battlefield. That's Freedom Gouda! Marlene was shocked, and then she cried out in surprise. While Bujaluru was surprised, the alarm in her heart suddenly rang loudly. Dominion Angel! Right rudder 5, angle of depression 2, maximum speed. Hurry! The enemy's attack is coming. Hurry! In the midst of Bujaluru's scream, the helmsman of the Dominion Angel used all his skills on the spot. In accordance with Bujaluru's urgent order, he used all his strength to steer the Dominion Angel towards the bottom right at full speed. At the moment when the huge hull of the Dominion Angel turned to the bottom right, a ray of light that Bujaluru was very familiar with, but also contained the aura of death, burst out from the depths of the asteroid belt with the force of thunder and went straight to the position of the Dominion Angel. At this moment, it was the first time since the Dominion Angel's first voyage that it faced death. TSK. Did I get tricked? Bujaluru clenched her right hand tightly, and her eyes subconsciously turned to Lars Mutta Yazzie next to her. Just as she had expected, the panic shown by this man, who from time to time used a condescending attitude to point fingers at her commanding ability, was really not surprising. That stream of light just now, I'm afraid it was the airframe driven by that person? Freedom Gouda? In the midst of her wild thoughts, the terrible light of death illuminated the bridge of the Dominion Angel, but it suddenly woke Bujaluru up. Not hit! The silence of stepping into the door of death quickly receded, and what took over Bujaluru's hearing was the warning from all over the bridge. Captain, the port side of the Dominion Angel was affected by the attack, and it is seriously damaged and cannot be repaired in a short time. In addition, judging from the scale of the enemy's attack, it is very likely to be an attack launched by the positron siege cannon. The report from the Damage Management Department and the intelligence summary of the personnel on the bridge showed that there was only one choice in the situation Bujaluru was facing now. Sir Lars Yazzie. Bujaluru gritted her teeth and made a decision in her heart. But fortunately, before Bujaluru could speak, Mutta Yazzie Lars had already made a choice. Captain Bujaluru. Quick. Recall those 3 guys. Quick. Captain. Gouda has suffered heavy damage, Gouda's energy is low, Gouda is in a difficult battle, please give instructions. CIC's sudden words were like an assist, completely expelling Lars Yazzie's last hope. Sir Lars Yazzie. We have no choice now. Dominion Angel. Issue the order to retreat. Let's retreat. Behind the port side filled with billowing smoke, 3 signal flares of different colors rose into the air. Then, a series of reflective thunderbolts and smoke bombs were continuously shot out by the Dominion Angel, creating a smoky area in front of the Dominion Angel that was enough to cover its movements. However, Bujaluru didn't know how effective such an operation would be. Not to mention the Archangel and the Orb battleship lurking in the gravel belt, the Free Gouda, who had a terrifying speed that was unimaginable to ordinary people, was already a big problem for the Dominion Angel. Can we escape? Bujaluru looked at the billowing smoke outside the porthole and couldn't help but think. The situation was just as Bujaluru expected. When the Dominion Angel fired reflective thunderbolts and smoke bombs to cover its retreat, the Free Gouda had already arrived above the thick smoke area. Chase? Or stay? This choice paused in Ray Minkai's heart for a moment before Ray Minkai made a decision. The reason was that Siegel Klein hadn't left Mendel yet, and the Free Gouda couldn't be too far away. So you're doing this for the future, Pa? The White Cat State Zero, who wanted to taunt Ray Minkai, was slapped onto the console by Ray Minkai. Shut up. Ray Minkai shook his slightly numb right hand. This cat's body was so strong that even through a pilot suit with a certain protective ability, it could still shake Ray Minkai's right hand until it was numb. I'm just saying, you don't have to react so strongly. The White Cat State Zero shook its head, not caring at all that it was slapped onto the console by Ray Minkai. Speaking of which, can you improve the heat dissipation ability of this big guy? Just now, this big guy was almost set on fire. I'll do it when we get back. The winged Radiance Bearer's acceleration was terrifying, but it was still limited by the Free Gouda's own heat dissipation ability. The stunning ultra-fast sprint just now was pleasing to the eye, but if it continued for too long, the free Gouda itself would be overheated and fall into a breakdown. This was the real reason why Rei Minkai let the Dominion Angel go. Chapter 638. Many parts were placed on the cold floor one by one. Compared to the parts that everyone was familiar with, the parts that were placed on the floor had traces of being burned in a different process. Although from the outside, these parts still had a clear outline, they were on the verge of being scrap. I say, Kai, what did you do before? Yuri Amifai scratched his head helplessly as he looked at the parts on the floor that looked like they were scrapped due to high temperature. These were MS parts made with the highest specifications by the plant industry. At the same time, they were core parts that could meet the requirements of operating a nuclear reactor. But these parts, which could be used for a long time, were only scrapped in a few battles. No, it should be said that they were scrapped in one battle. And the reason why they were scrapped was due to high-temperature melting? This made Yuri Amifai a little confused. Senator Amifai, you should have seen the previous battle data. It seems to be the result of the winged radiance bearer's operation exceeding a certain limit. Rei Minkai pondered for a moment, and told him about the abnormality detected by the White Cat State 0. Winged radiance bearer? Yuri Amifai was stunned for a moment and then sighed. If it's this, maybe it's possible? After all, this new technology was not included in the Freedom Gao Da's design. Although Dr. Serene also used part of the Freedom Gao Da's technology when developing the winged radiance bearer, there are still some flaws. Yuri Amifai squatted down and reached out to touch the surface of the parts that were deformed due to the melting. So, when it reaches a certain limit, it's inevitable that some accidents will happen. Fortunately, these accidents did not cause any impact in the battle. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Rei Minkai's words made Yuri Amifai laugh. You're joking. Rei Minkai, your strength is enough to surpass any ace pilot from Earth Alliance and ZAF. Even if you don't break the limit of the winged radiance bearer, the Freedom Gouda you're piloting is still powerful. This might make some sense. However, Rei Minkai was still wary. Although he had defeated Kreutzer before, it was more due to the difference in the performance of the mech. If Kreutzer ascended the Oracle Gouda, the situation would be completely different. In addition, Miss E, who had never shown herself and only controlled Plant and Zaft through the fake Lux and Patrick Sala, was a great hidden danger. Because of these two concerns, Yuri Amifai's statement that he did not need to surpass a certain boundary of the winged radiance bearer in order to defeat the enemy was indeed lacking in consideration. No matter what, Counselor Amifai, the SS Eternity has spare parts for the Gouda. I hope that you can repair the Gouda and at the same time provide the Gouda with cooling capabilities. Rei Minkai's solemn expression made Yuri Amifai frown slightly, but he didn't say anything and just nodded. Alright. If there were enough spare parts, it wouldn't be a problem. Also, Dr. Celine seems to be coming to help. We can also think of a way to increase the cooling capabilities of the winged radiance bearer and the Freedom Gouda. After the battle, Rei Minkai and Yuri Amifai discussed the maintenance plan for the winged Gouda and finalized a rough plan. However, Rei Minkai was far from being able to rest, because it was time for those who were supposed to leave to leave. Due to the previous battle, the colonial satellite Mendel had been exposed to the eyes of Zaft and the Earth Alliance army. Therefore, Mendel could no longer be used as a hiding place for the three spaceship alliance. Before retreating, Siegel Klein and the others had to leave early and return to Earth, leaving behind only those who might participate in the upcoming battle. At this moment, a large group of people had gathered at the harbor. Among them, there were those who bid farewell to each other, and those who agreed to do things together after the battle. Siegel and Lux stood on the other side, watching the crowd gradually disperse. Lux, time's up. I'm leaving. I'll have to rely on myself for the rest of the journey. No matter how much she wanted to say, there would be a day when she finished. In the previous many conversations, Siegel had already said what she wanted to say. She even did not forget to probe the relationship between Lux and Rei Minkai a few times, causing her precious daughter to almost shut herself in. Please take care of yourself, father. A trace of reluctance flashed in Lux's eyes, but she did not say anything to persuade her father to stay. Siegel nodded and looked at the other side of the tunnel as if she was waiting for something. Father? Lux noticed her father's strange behavior and could not help but ask. No. I'm just waiting for someone. Siegel smiled slightly. But it was this smile that made Lux's cheeks blush slightly. Her father's meaning was very clear. Before leaving, he had to catch someone and remind them before he could leave with satisfaction. Then, a series of familiar footsteps came from the tunnel. The person Siegel was waiting for appeared. Uncle. Sorry. I'm late. After entering the port, Rei Minkai sized up the separated crowd and came before Siegel and her father. No. Don't mind. After all, your matters are more important. Siegel also knew about the malfunction of the Free Gouda originally. Yuri Amify was to return to Earth with Siegel, but after the malfunction of the Free Gouda, he changed his decision to follow the SS Eternity. Rei Minkai nodded. Uncle. Gemengard's side has already been arranged. After returning to Earth, Uncle and your family will settle down in Scandinavia as collateral relatives of the SAS family. I'm sorry to say this. In such a short time, this is already the greatest result of the Ring of Midgard. Siegel did not care much about this. After going through a series of events, Siegel did not care much about the change in status. The only thing she cared about was Plant and Lux Klein's future. That's enough. Moreover, before this war ends, I'm afraid we can only live in seclusion. After saying that, Siegel looked at Rei Minkai and Lux deeply, then reached out and took out a necklace. Look. This was found at your mother's bedside when you were born. We wanted to return it to the owner, but no matter whether we checked the surveillance or asked the surrounding doctors and nurses, we could not find the owner of this necklace. No, the owner of this stone. Therefore, before your mother passed away, she had this stone made into a necklace and told me to give it to you when the time was right. The necklace in Siegel's hand was inlaid with a stone of unknown texture. From its translucent appearance, which seemed to be flowing with traces of flowing colors, it seemed to be a rather precious gem. However, Rei Minkai faintly felt a trace of abnormality. That is. A white shadow rushed out from under Rei Minkai's feet and rushed in front of Siegel. It was White Cat State 0. This white cat that was extremely lazy in the past, as if nothing could arouse its interest, was staring at the necklace in Siegel's hand. No. Or rather, it was the stone inlaid on the necklace. State 0? Rei Minkai gave Siegel an apologetic smile and bent down to carry the white cat State 0. Fortunately, other than the constantly swinging tail of the white cat State 0, Rei Minkai easily carried the white cat State 0 in his arms, not letting it disturb Siegel and her father. It seems that Kai, your little white cat, likes this necklace very much. However, it's a pity. This is a relic left to Lux by Lux's mother. Today, it can be considered as fulfilling Lux's mother's last wish. Siegel did not mind the abrupt behavior of the white cat State 0 just now. After a slight sigh, she took a step forward and personally put on the necklace that caused the white cat State 0 to act strangely on Lux. The strange thing was that the moment Siegel put on the necklace for Lux, the faintly discernible flowing colors that could not be seen clearly if one did not concentrate suddenly seemed to come to life and gradually became active with Lux's breathing. Under the colorful radiance, Lake's aura seemed to have become otherworldly, as if she was an angel that had descended from the heavens. It seems that your mother's choice was not wrong. This necklace is indeed very suitable for you. Lux subconsciously reached out to touch the smooth surface of the unknown stone. Her eyes were filled with the flowing colors that flickered with her breathing. Is that so? Thank you, Father. Perhaps this is the most precious gift I have ever received. Seagull nodded silently and then looked at Ray Minkai. I'll leave the rest in your hands. After saying that, Seagull meaningfully patted Ray Minkai's shoulder and turned to board the spaceship to Earth. Under the gaze of the two people, the spaceship carrying Seagull Klein met up with the giant serpent's tail and embarked on the journey back to Earth. Perhaps it was because of the parting of father and daughter once again, Lux's mood seemed to be somewhat low after the spaceship left. After Ray Minkai sent Lux back to her room without any doubts, he was called to a remote corner by the White Cat State Zero. Do you still remember what happened when we were bombed by the MDE? MDE? The White Cat State Zero had privately mentioned to Ray Minkai that it had felt a wave of energy at the moment of the MDE explosion. Not only did the White Cat State Zero find this wave of energy familiar, but it could also be the reason why Ray Minkai and the White Cat State Zero survived the MDE explosion and ended up in this world. You've discovered that wave of energy? Ray Minkai was shocked and suddenly remembered the strange expression on the White Cat State Zero's face when it saw the necklace. State Zero, don't tell me you. The White Cat State Zero glanced at the puzzled Ray Minkai and nodded silently. That wave of energy is that necklace. My senses can't be wrong. Wait. The White Cat State Zero was certain that the necklace was the reason why they survived the MDE explosion and ended up in this world. However, this made Ray Minkai even more puzzled. When the MDE explosion happened, I didn't feel much. However, since this wave of energy allowed me to survive, then was there someone in the convoy who was holding this shard and coincidentally triggered the shard's energy when the MDE explosion happened? The White Cat State Zero lowered its head slightly and thought for a while. It first nodded and then shook its head. This made Ray Minkai puzzled for a while. Maybe your guess is right. When the White Cat State Zero spoke again, it had already acknowledged Ray Minkai's guess. Maybe there was someone in the convoy who was holding the shard and coincidentally triggered the shard's energy, causing us to end up in this world. However, who do you think is qualified to hold the shard of our home world in that convoy? When ordinary people come into contact with the shard of our home world, they will only sink into the power of the shard. In an instant, Ray Minkai was stunned. Recalling the list of important personnel in the convoy at that time, it seemed that there was only one person. It can't be. A shocking fact suddenly appeared in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. Then, if this is true, then, are you afraid that she will regain her real memory? Just like the time when you lost your memory. Ray Minkai had a similar experience before. Therefore, the White Cat State Zero saw Ray Minkai's concern at a glance. That's one thing. A bitter smile appeared on Ray Minkai's face. If Her Royal Highness turns back into Her Majesty the Empress, isn't that what you want? You have at least 2 empresses in your family. The White Cat State Zero ignored Ray Minkai's bitter smile. Instead, it was still teasing Ray Minkai with Euphemia and Ethylum. That was just an accident. Ray Minkai's eyelids twitched a few times, and he weakly refuted. TSK. If it was just an accident, what do you think we should do? The White Cat State Zero curled its lip. I tried to call out to the shard just now, but the shard did not respond to my call at all. Minkai, you have to know that this is the first time. Is it when you suddenly ran out just now? Otherwise? Do you think I'm the kind of shameful cat that has nothing better to do and runs out to act coquettishly with humans? I'm a metal creature, the long-toothed lion. The long-toothed lion with the power of evolution. After a low growl sounded from its throat, the White Cat State Zero slowly swung its tail and thought about its thoughts. According to my observation, that shard is probably related to your little princess. So, Minkai, you're on your own. Chapter 639. The slender piece of paper was gradually engulfed by the flames, and Ray Minkai's mood was constantly fluctuating along with the flames on the piece of paper. This was the information sent urgently by the Midgard ring. The content, the Dominion Angel, which was repelled before, did not immediately return to the lunar base, Ptolemy, for maintenance. Instead, it suddenly turned to a remote region midway, and suddenly returned to the normal course in less than half an hour. All of this seemed to be caused by a temporary malfunction in the navigation system caused by the previous fierce battle. But according to the speculation of the intelligence personnel surrounding the Midgard ring, this seemed to be a malfunction, and it was very likely to be some hidden danger that they had not yet investigated. On this point, Ray Minkai might have already guessed. In the previous battle, Ray Minkai piloted the Freedom Gauda to first repel Kreutzer's fleet, and then by fully driving the Radiance Bearer, he attracted the attention of the Dominion Angel and covered the grass question to fire the positron siege cannon, causing heavy damage to the Dominion Angel. As time went by, the scene that was supposed to happen in the near future during the chaotic battle between the three parties near Mendel was shattered. Speaking of which, even if this three-way chaotic battle happened as usual, as the core figure of that incident, Flay, was no longer here. Under Ray Minkai's active activities, this young lady, who was deeply enraged because she witnessed her father being killed by Zaft, had already continued her daily life as a young lady. With that, she bid farewell to this battlefield. Is it an anti-neutron disruptor? Looking at the piece of paper that burned to ashes, Ray Minkai's mind flashed with a possibility. Other than this, there was probably no other possibility. With Kreutzer's ability, even if his previous attack was thwarted by Ray Minkai, he would inevitably find a way to send the information he obtained to the Earth Alliance. And this time, Kreutzer got a big bargain. Why Zack, who should have witnessed Kreutzer's abnormal actions and become suspicious, probably still didn't know the conspiracy of Lulu Kreutzer, and still maintained his respect for Kreutzer. However, this had nothing to do with Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai decided to gather everyone and announce his speculations after carefully combing through the information he obtained from the Ring of Midgard and the results of his speculations. He wanted to see what the others thought. If Lars Mutta Yazzie had really obtained the anti-neutron disruptor, the three-ship alliance's operation might have to be brought forward. However, just as Lay Minkai was trying to gather everyone together and announce the information, a piece of news that was no different from a nightmare suddenly hit. Lakis suddenly fainted when she was meeting with Maureen to discuss matters. Yakin Dowell defensive line. Not long ago, the pursuit fleet that was defeated by Mendel cast a shadow over the satellite fortress that was the last line of defense for Plant. Perhaps it was done by someone with ulterior motives. The recording of the battle that should have only been in the hands of the higher-ups had inadvertently fallen into the hands of other soldiers. In just one night, Free Gauda's figure that was like a stream of light had become a nightmare on Yakin Dowell's defensive line. Many soldiers who had witnessed the battle video with their own eyes would often be awakened by a stream of light that appeared in their dreams, unable to calm down for a long time. The tired faces that gradually turned pale almost became the scenery on Yakin Dowell's defensive line. Damn it! Which bastard leaked it? Why, Zack looked at the listless faces and couldn't help but smash his fist into the wall. The ferocity of the force caused Diego's eyelids to twitch violently. Who knows? Perhaps Captain Kreutzer and the others are already investigating who leaked the battle video. Diego shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he didn't know either. He even said in a lucky tone, speaking of which, it was really terrifying at that time. If that fellow hadn't shown mercy, the leaked battle video might have had the scene of the two of us heroically sacrificing ourselves. Shut up, Diego. Who wants that bastard to show mercy? The fact that Free Gauda's pilot was Ray Minkai was already a foregone conclusion. However, for some unknown reason, Kreutzer did not tell the upper echelons of the Yakin Dowell's defensive line about this fact. But isn't it because of that guy that we're still standing here? Diego sighed helplessly. Diego knew his best friend's personality very well. However, Zach was unwilling to face reality. Shut up. Who wants to thank that guy? Just as Zach was about to grab Diego's collar and shut him up, a burst of noise suddenly came from behind him. The two of them turned around and saw that a few Zaft soldiers were nervously following the conveyor belt in the direction of Neku. The sharp-eyed Diego first raised his hand to remove Zach's hands from his collar, then reached out and grabbed the Zaft soldier at the back. Hey! What the hell is going on? The Zaft soldier, who was originally pulled by Diego, instinctively wanted to berate him, but when he saw the red clothes Diego and Zach were wearing, his expression immediately changed. An airframe suddenly appeared on the Yakin Dowel defense line. Moreover, the warships and MS patrolling outside did not discover its existence at all. Didn't discover the other party? And was touched by the other party to Yakin Dowel? Diego and Zach frowned. In their knowledge, the only airframe that could do this was probably Thunderbolt Gouda. However, Thunderbolt Gouda had already been reclaimed by the Earth Alliance on the grassland. Is it the Earth Alliance? Thinking that it might be an enemy, Zach was eager to give it a try. There was no other reason. He just wanted to find a target to vent his anger. No. The Zaft soldier's eyes flickered a few times, and then he secretly looked left and right. After confirming that there was no one else, he actually said in a voice that only the three of them could hear. I heard that the identification number of that airframe is ours, and that airframe is the same series as the Demon of Light. After saying that, the Zaft soldier took advantage of Diego and Zach's carelessness and ran away. Hey! Stop right there. What the hell are you talking about? The Demon of Light? Diego, who had finally regained his senses, shouted repeatedly, but he was still unable to stop the soldier's footsteps. There's no need to shout. The Demon of Light should be the nickname of that guy in Free Gouda. However, what's going on with the other airframe? A similar type of airframe? Just as Zach was thinking hard about this question, Kreutzer's voice sounded. Yizak Diego, it's time. Let's go. Kreutzer, who had appeared behind the two of them at some point in time, looked at them meaningfully and saw through their thoughts. Why? Are you thinking about that airframe just now? It seems that the airframe that suddenly appeared in the depths of Yakin Due's defense line has indeed caused a lot of trouble. When Kreutzer said this, the two of them immediately shifted their gazes to him. Captain Kreutzer, do you know the origin of that airframe? Is it really the same series as Free Gouda's airframe? Zach casually asked this question. Kreutzer smiled softly. Yes. That airframe is indeed the same series as Free Gouda's airframe. Its name seems to be the Holy Accord Gouda. I don't know the details, but from the news from the Defense Commission, this airframe seems to have been sent out on some special missions. After a pause, a trace of ridicule flashed in Kreutzer's eyes, but due to the existence of the mask, it was not seen by Zach and Diego. Perhaps the reason why this airframe suddenly appeared in the depths of Yakin Due's defense line and caused the surrounding warships and MS radars to malfunction was because of the orders of the Defense Commission to check the alert level of Yakin Due's defense line. After saying that, Kreutzer took a deep breath. Alright. That's the end of the matter regarding the Holy Accord Gouda. Our mission is not to stay here and investigate the purpose of the airframe's appearance here, but to immediately return to April City and submit a report about the Free Gouda and the SS Eternity to the Defense Commission in person. Hearing this, Yitzhak and Diego looked at each other and suppressed the doubts in their hearts at the same time. They replied in unison, "Don't worry." Yes, Captain Kreutzer. However, unlike Zach and Diego, who had returned to April City from Yakin Due's defense line, Kira, who had driven the Holy Accord Gouda into Yakin Due, was in a complicated mood, anxious and even anxious. This was because, in his arms, the pink girl's face was already pale. She tightly closed her pair of lively eyes, and even her beautiful and soft pink hair had turned a lot grayish-white. Lakis, hold on. Kira did not know what had happened to the girl in his arms. In his memory, the girl who had taken the fever medicine had indeed improved a lot. She was even able to get out of bed and stroll through the abandoned colonial satellite with him, searching for supplies that would allow them to survive together. Holding the girl's small hand, Kira, who was shuttling through the colonial satellite with her, sometimes couldn't help but have the thought of taking the girl to live in seclusion together. That night, the pink girl who had confessed her identity to him was not disgusted or even abandoned by Kira. After revealing that she wasn't the real Lux Klein, but the real identity of the clone known as LH-033, the girl was welcomed by Kira's warm embrace. It doesn't matter who you are. I only know that when I fell into darkness, it was you who brought me back to the light. So, to me, you are Lakis Klein. In the warm embrace, Kira's gentleness made the girl, who was an imprint, fall into it. However, this happy time did not last. Just when Kira thought that LH-033 was about to recover, the girl suddenly fainted. No matter how Kira used all the medicine and methods he could find that might be useful, he could not wake the girl up for even a moment. It was only when Kira, who had exhausted all his efforts to save the girl, suddenly discovered that there were a few white spots on the girl's delicate little hand that Kira's psychological defense collapsed. The young man who originally thought that he could live in seclusion with LH-033 and not care about the outside world finally carried the unconscious girl and boarded the Holy Accord Gouda again, charging into the Yakin Due defense line without hesitation. This is the Holy Accord Gouda Identification Code 285003. Yakin Due defense line, please answer. The blood-red body stopped in front of the Yakin Due defense line, silently looking at the MS class that rushed out of the satellite fortress in front of it, unmoved. This is Yakin Due. Please ask which unit you belong to. The sudden appearance of the Holy Accord Gouda in front of the Yakin Due defense line caused the entire satellite fortress to fall into chaos. Kira looked down at the girl whose eyes were tightly shut and whose face was getting paler and paler, and gritted his teeth. Yakin Due. This is the special unit directly under the Supreme Council, Kira Yamato. Please contact the National Defense Committee immediately. The Holy Accord Gouda is currently escorting an important person. The situation is urgent. Please contact the mainland immediately. Please contact the mainland immediately. Kira's anxious tone shocked the command hall of the Yakin Due defense line. Please ask. The identification code was correct. The body identification code was also correct. However, just to be on the safe side, when they wanted to ask for more details, they were coldly shouted by Kira. What are you still standing there for? Please contact the mainland immediately. The situation is urgent. Hurry! Kira's ferocious expression scared the communications personnel, but Commander Zaft, who was standing next to him, pressed down on his shoulder. Don't panic. Let me do it. The Holy Accord Gouda. May I ask who the important person you are talking about is? No. You don't need to know this question. What you need to do now is to contact the plant mainland. The rest is up to the plant mainland to decide. The pink girl was lying quietly on the bed, so quiet that it was as if she was a sleeping princess. Maybe you can wake her up, right? White Cat State Zero jumped onto the bed and looked at Ray Minkai, who was guarding the bed, with a mocking expression. This is not a fairy tale. State Zero, don't mess around. Ray Minkai had been guarding the bed for a day and a night. Other than the doctor who came to observe the situation, the others tactfully left the space for the night and Princess Duo. Who knows? White Cat State Zero swung its tail, and in the blink of an eye, the cat was lying on the bed, squinting its eyes to size up the sleeping princess in front of it. The scene in its eyes was completely different from what Ray Minkai saw. Rays of light that ordinary people could not see were quietly emerging from the void, and like swallows returning to their nest, they were orderly moving towards Lux. No, to be precise, they were converging towards the necklace. As expected. Seeing this scene, White Cat State Zero could not help but sigh. Her Royal Highness may be waking up. Chapter 640. Lunar Base, Ptolemy. From the moment the heavily damaged Dominion Angel returned, the entire Ptolemy base became busy. Even Hal Barton, who was under house arrest in the depths of the base, noticed a trace of abnormality, but he didn't try to ask anyone, nor did he ask the higher-ups of the Ptolemy base to allow him to see the captain of the Angel again. Instead, he chose to use his eyes and ears to observe and listen to the abnormalities and strange sounds around him. As time passed by, the true face of the mysterious gift brought back by Lars Mutayazi was finally discovered by Hal Barton using the clues around him as a blueprint. An anti-neutron jammer? It seems that this war is about to usher in a moment of change. Hal Barton, who was under house arrest in the depths of the Ptolemy base, raised his head and looked at the dome. He had reason to believe that this war was bound to usher in a moment of change. But he didn't know which side would be on when the moment of change came. Would it be Zaft? Or the Earth Union? Or was he on the side of the mysterious mech that Bucky Lulu had mentioned? Hal Barton didn't know. But he knew that the time for him to take action was not far away. It's not far from the time for the Earth Union to take action again. On the other side of space, Ray Minkai, who had the same idea as Hal Barton, also said this to everyone. Take action again? Attack Zaft's territory? But in front of the Yazan Due defense line, didn't Zaft add a new satellite fortress called Boyaz? Without most of the power of the Earth Union Universe Army, this fortress will be a difficult bone to chew. Mu, who had participated in many battles between the Earth Union and Zaft on the space battlefield, knew very well how difficult it was to chew the satellite fortress placed on the only way to plant. That's right. The satellite fortress placed by Zaft in P-Nalenti must be a difficult bone to chew. Ray Minkai nodded and confirmed Mu's statement. Then, he continued, that's right. But a few days ago, our intelligence personnel obtained a suspicious piece of information. And the fact that this suspicious information pointed to is that the Earth Union is likely to have regained control of the use of nuclear weapons. His words stirred up 1,000 ripples. Ray Minkai's casual words caused an uproar among the crowd. It must be known that the moment the war between the Earth Alliance and Zaft began to heat up was probably the moment the Earth Alliance used a nuclear bomb to destroy Unus 7. And Lei Minkai happened to have the identity of the last survivor of Unus 7. Therefore, when this information came from Ray Minkai's mouth, no one dared to ignore it or question it. Margot looked around and moved her lips. She wanted to confirm again, "You're right. Your Excellency, please allow me to confirm the authenticity of this information once again. After all, this is not something that can be joked about." However, the one who answered her was not Ray Minkai, but Lux. That's right. Recently, Lux, who had been in a coma for several days, finally woke up. However, even though Lakis didn't look any different after waking up, everyone could sense the looming aura of a leader from her. This conflicted with her gentle and amiable image from before. Captain Margaret, the information I got is not wrong. It is very likely that the Earth Union has obtained a way to use nuclear weapons again. If Satellite Fortress Boyaz is really destroyed by Earth's nuclear weapons, then I'm afraid this war will only end in a life-and-death situation. Lakis's serious attitude made everyone's expression turn solemn. What about the attack time? Did you get the information? Carrie looked around and asked. But what she got was Ray Minkai's denial. We don't know about this. What we can know is that after the Dominion Angel returned to the lunar base Ptolemy, the entire base fell into a busy state. Moreover, supply operations from Earth have become much more frequent. That's all the information we got. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and had the same thought. Should we set up an ambush near Satellite Fortress Boyaz? However, when they thought about the fact that although the current three-ship alliance was powerful, they still relied on Gouda and Ray Minkai, these two top combatants with heaven-defying combat power. If the enemy saw through this and spared no expense to keep the Freedom Gundam and Lei Minkai busy, they would turn around and attack the three-ship alliance. Even the combination of Dark Assault and the M1 Heresy wouldn't be able to last long, right? Thinking of this, everyone once again dismissed the idea of ambushing near the satellite fortress Boyaz. If we can get more accurate information, maybe we can follow behind the Earth Alliance's attack fleet and go to Boyaz. Among the pondering crowd, a voice sounded. It was Zasaka. He, who was a man of few words, proposed a compromise. This might be the most suitable method at the moment. After a round of discussion, everyone finally chose this compromise. In this regard, Ray Minkai was not surprised at all. After the battle between the Archangel and the Angel, although the damage suffered by the Archangel was not serious, it consumed the most ammunition resources among the three-ship alliance. In order to restore the combat power of the Archangel as soon as possible, the recovery merchant led by Law was also constantly gathering manpower to collect resources that could be provided to the three-ship alliance. Therefore, Zasaka's proposal was also expected. After the decision was passed, everyone left with different expressions. Only Ray Minkai and Lux were left. Lux, who had casually tied her long pink hair into a ponytail, turned around and looked at Lei Minkai as she watched them leave. "Kai, can you walk with me?" Ray Minkai thought for a moment and agreed. The golden body. The wings of light that soared into the sky, swept across the entire sky, and lifted the huge satellite of death out of the atmosphere. The beautiful song that resounded in the human's inner world, resounded in the sky, and resounded in the Milky Way. The bodies of different shapes and sizes, but they were all fighting for the same purpose. And the pairs of passionate and admiring eyes. It was like a nightmare. Once, it appeared in front of her eyes again. She didn't know what these were. What did they mean? But she knew, from a certain moment in the past, perhaps the nightmare she was witnessing right now had already been predestined. Lux, Lux. Kira kept calling the name of the girl in front of him. Following his call, the girl finally opened her eyes slowly. It was half a month after the day the girl suddenly fainted. Kira. Where are we? Her thin face and haggard eyes made Kira's heart ache. We are now in April City. You will be fine. They will make you better. April City? This name was like a curse, causing the girl who should have become weak to suddenly struggle. Lux, calm down. We are very safe now. Kira was shocked and hurriedly comforted the weak girl. No. We are not safe. They will kill us. The girl struggled in fear, until a familiar voice quietly sounded. If I were you, I would obediently lie on the bed. LH033. This voice. This name. Once it appeared, it stopped the girl's struggle. Kira Yamato. If you want to save her, then complete the deal between us properly. A pink figure appeared behind Kira, looking down at the girl who was protected by Kira. Mia Pompey. LH033 said this name in a daze. Finally, he saw the mastermind behind the scenes again. However, she was still a doll being controlled by invisible strings. I remember my name very clearly. Looks like your brain hasn't deteriorated much. This is not bad. Kira Yamato. You can stay with her for a while. However, after that, you have to complete the deal between us. Kira's eyes wavered a few times, but soon became firm. I know. As long as you can cure her, I will complete the deal between us. They had the same face. However, the girl's temperament and eyes were completely different. She looked down at Kira and sneered. You are somewhat infatuated. No wonder Aslan lost to a scum like you in the past. With a sneer, Mia turned and left, leaving no room for Kira to react. Aslan? At this moment, Kira remembered that the girl named Lakis Klein had a fiancé, and this fiancé was his close friend, Aslan Sarah. At this moment, Kira was stunned. However, the next second, the girl in his arms pulled at the corner of his clothes. Kira. I am not Lakis Klein. I am only the imprinter LH033. I am not worth the price you have to pay to save me. Mia, who appeared in front of him, did not say what the deal between Kira and her was. However, LH033 had already guessed it. Kira Yamato, who was crowned by some as the one who emphasized rectification the most, had been targeted by Mia Pompey and the mysterious girl standing behind her from the beginning. Thus, she, the imprinter known as LH033, was able to appear in front of Kira Yamato. It's okay. This is my personal opinion, and also my personal wish. So, let me use my own way to achieve it. Kira could see that the girl in front of him did not want him to step into the whirlpool that he should have jumped out of, but Kira knew that this was the only way he could save the girl. Kira! Kira called the girl's name softly, but paused in the next second. Then, Kira kissed the girl's forehead gently and said softly, If you don't like the name Lakis Klein, then, when you are better, shall we come up with a new name together? No matter if you are the imprinter or not, in my heart, you are still you. After saying that, Kira gently pushed the girl away and turned to leave resolutely, leaving behind the back view that was slowly isolated by the door, and the weak girl who was barely supporting her body and staring at the back view. Their steps, one in front and one behind, gradually synchronized without them noticing. In the beginning, they walked one after the other, but later on, they walked side by side. They only walked through a passage that seemed to be very long, but was actually less than 10 meters long. As the automatic door in front of him opened, an image of a huge asteroid in the upper half and a vast, pitch-black space in the lower half appeared in front of Lei Mingkai. Let's go in. Lakis tapped her feet lightly and lightly floated into the observation deck that could clearly see the outside world. Lei Mingkai muttered to himself for a moment, then followed behind Lakis and floated in. However, the two people who entered did not immediately start talking. They only reached out to grab the railing and quietly watched the asteroid rotate slowly outside. Perhaps 5 minutes had passed, or perhaps half an hour had passed. Lei Mingkai didn't find it boring at all as he quietly watched the asteroid rotate outside the window with luck. Recently, I had a dream. The pink ponytail gently fluttered in the air as Lakis rotated, sometimes swaying, sometimes stretching, looking exceptionally gentle and beautiful. Dream? Lei Mingkai was a little surprised. Yes, it was a dream. Lakis nodded. Her lively eyes seemed to be shining with a brilliance that Lei Mingkai was not familiar with. In the dream, I saw a lot of people, a lot of things, and a lot of things. Lei Mingkai did not speak. He only waited for Lakis to continue. He knew that what Lakis needed now was perhaps a trustworthy audience. In the dream, I saw my father's death. I saw the terrifying scene of the people of Plant being blown into space by the explosion. I saw the United Nations of Earth launching missiles at Plant. I also saw the Zaft soldiers who did their best to intercept the nuclear weapons. Lakis spoke faintly. As she spoke, Lakis' eyes began to drift, as if she had already looked at the unreachable end. Lakis, did you see the future? Lei Mingkai listened quietly, but he could not help but ask. Could it be that the Lakis Klein in front of him was really like the White Cat State Zero, who had recalled all her memories? Hearing this, Lakis slowly shook her head. I don't know. I even saw Freedom Gouda and Justice Gouda. But as for the dream after that, I can't remember. Then, without waiting for Lei Mingkai to speak, Lakis slowly floated in front of Lei Mingkai. She gently pulled up Lei Mingkai's right hand and held it with both of her hands. But at the end of the dream, I saw you. I saw you standing in the crowd with a white cat on your shoulder. The moment you looked at me. Kai. Don't worry. I'm still me. I'm Lakis Klein. I'm the Lakis Klein you've protected since the Silver Wind incident. Chapter 641. The time for the attack had finally arrived. After suffering heavy losses, the Dominion Angel had no choice but to return to the moon base. When it set out again, it led a fleet loaded with taboo weapons and left the moon base in Ptolemy. Such a large-scale operation naturally could not be concealed. The moment the Dominion Angel left with the fleet, information was sent to different parts of the world through different channels, immediately causing a huge commotion. Those with a bit of foresight would have already thought that this might be the Earth Union's final gambit. Then, was this war really about to come to an end? The encrypted signal from the moon passed through several communications satellites that were disguised as rocks floating in the boundless space. Finally, it crossed the vast distance of space and arrived at the SS Eternity, a secret intelligence room inside. Then, under the analysis of the intelligence personnel, it was finally turned into a piece of paper that was handed to Ray Minkai. The Earth Union has started moving. Lei Minkai lowered his gaze and gave it a cursory glance before handing it over to Lux, who was beside him. Lux took a look at it and silently nodded before handing it to Baltfield, who was sitting opposite her. Bartfield took a look at it and sneered a few times. I didn't expect that Knight's guess would be correct. It seems that the Earth Union has really found a way to deal with Boyaz. In the previous meeting of the Three Spaceship Alliance's leadership, Ray Minkai had speculated that the Earth Union would most likely regain control of nuclear weapons. In the end, the development of the situation was indeed in the direction that Ray Minkai had predicted. No matter what, we have to inform Captain Margaret and the others. Captain Baltfield. Lux raised her head and looked at Baltfield. Yes. Baltfield nodded and casually handed the piece of paper with the Earth Union's movements to the woman behind him. Aisha. I'll have to trouble you. Send this information to the Archangel and Kusanagi. Understood. Aisha nodded and turned to leave the room. Then, Baltfield muttered to himself and clenched his fist. Then, Sir Knight, do you think we should go and save Boyaz? I remember that Boyaz's people are staunch supporters of the Salafist. This might be a problem. However, it was not an unsolvable problem. Even though the Klein faction and the Salam faction were like fire and water, and even seemed to be at odds with each other in certain aspects, Lakis naturally had to save those that could be saved. No, Captain Baltfield. No matter who the people of Boyaz support, they are still our fellow countrymen. They are all people who have been dragged into the whirlpool of war and are unable to extricate themselves. We cannot watch as Boyaz is destroyed by the United Earth's nuclear weapons, Lux said with a serious expression. Hearing this, Butterfield spread out his hands without any surprise. Yes, perhaps this is how our Princess Songstress should be. Then, Sir Knight, it's time for you to work hard. Ray Minkai pondered for a moment before asking, What's the matter? Butterfield, what's the current situation of the meteor system? Can it be put into use? Baltfield smiled confidently. Of course. This is our strongest fighting force. If the meteor system wasn't ready, I wouldn't have agreed to Your Highness' request so easily. Meteor system. This was an arms system installed on SS Eternity to enhance the fighting power of Freedom Gouda and Justice Gouda. After combining with the meteor system, Freedom Gouda could simultaneously lock on to a large number of targets. Furthermore, it possessed even more powerful and terrifying firepower than the MS mode. Being able to complete the adjustment of the meteor system in time was undoubtedly a reassuring pill for the next operation. It gave Butterfield the confidence to complete the next operation. Then, let's set off. Kai, Captain Baltfield. Right now, we're already behind. Understood. 10 minutes later, Archangel and Grasshopper, who had received the information and the decision from SS Eternity, made the same decision. Amidst the flames emitted by the propulsion engine, SS Eternity in the middle was the first to move. It left the shadow of the asteroid and headed straight for the satellite fortress, Boyaz. Archangel and Grasshopper followed closely behind. Although their actions were quick, everyone was still a little anxious in their hearts. Although the speed of the information gathering around the Midgardian ring was astonishing, they were already half a step behind. Under such circumstances, perhaps it was already too late? In the pitch-black void, the fleet led by Main Angel advanced with their heads held high. They took the most crucial step towards the satellite fortress, Boyaz, which was getting bigger and clearer in the distance. On the bridge of the Main Angel, Mutta Yazril's lips curled up slightly. He, who had obtained the final decision within the Earth Alliance and the blue Persian chrysanthemum with his tough words, had brought the ultimate weapon that he regarded as enough to change the situation of the war to the door of plant. Time's up, Captain Bucky and Lulu. Let those two guys attack. The two guys Lars Mutta Yazzie spoke of were naturally Olga of Calamity Gouda and Shunny of Prohibition Gouda. However, only two of the three unyielding cockroaches that had always acted together were left. The remaining mech pilots who had robbed Gouda were nowhere to be seen. Even so, the flames of war had already begun. Boyaz was indeed one of the defensive lines that Zaft had placed high hopes on. Even with the addition of two Goudas from the Earth Alliance fleet, they were still unable to tear a hole in Boyaz's defensive line. This made Lars Mutta Yazzie slightly clench his right hand. Is it still too taxing? In the next second, Lars Mutta Yazzie suddenly loosened his brows. No. It seems that it has already exceeded my expectations. Even if there are only two of them, their strength is still acceptable. There was no hidden meaning in his words. However, when Lars Mutta Yazzie saw Calamity Gouda and Prohibition Gouda working together to break through Boyaz's defensive line, he finally understood. It was not that the three unyielding cockroaches were not strong, it was just that the enemies they encountered were elites standing at the pinnacle of the battlefield. Now, although Boyaz's defensive line was stable, the MS defensive line with only gold flying back and forth could not stop the attack of the two Goudas. A hole was torn in Boyaz's defensive line. At the same time, the Agamemnon-class Washington of the Earth Alliance fleet called. Boyaz's defensive line has been torn apart. It's time for us to mobilize the Peace Pioneer Force. Lars Mutta Yazzie clenched his fist tightly. Understood. The memory of the near-death experience from the last battle with the Archangel lingered in Lars Mutta Yazzie's heart. It was a disgrace. It was also a threat between life and death. What a terrifying attack that fleeting stream of light had brought about. If Buggy Lulu's reaction was a little slower, I'm afraid that the angel that had just set sail would not have returned to the lunar base of Ptolemy with heavy damage on the port side. Instead, it would have appeared on the Earth Alliance's battle report with the entire ship destroyed. As for himself, he was nothing more than an ordinary line of words on the battle report. Come on. Let me see the brilliance of nuclear weapons. One by one, the MA Morbius that had been reactivated because of the acquisition of nuclear weapons took off from the four Agamemnon-class motherships one after another. They formed a group and bravely headed toward Boyaz. The brilliance of the engine emitted by the large-scale deployment of MA Morbius immediately attracted the attention of many Zaft MS. However, before these Zaft MS could react, the Calamity and Prohibition Gouda that took the lead to open the path for the Peace Pioneer Force immediately eliminated all the threats that could stop the advance of this force. The strange actions of the Earth Alliance left Boyaz's Zaft garrison scratching their heads. Even if the MS pilots on the front line reacted in time, it was useless, because the Calamity and Prohibition Gouda had already eliminated all the potential threats and were only waiting for the Peace Pioneer Force to enter the optimal firing range. Oh, it's coming! Olga screamed again and again. He didn't know what kind of terrifying weapons the force that he was protecting had. He only knew that the people above, especially that Lars Mutaboyaz, seemed to like this force a lot. Therefore, he also had some expectations for this force. Under his gaze, missiles after missiles shot out from the Morbius launchers and headed straight for the satellite fortress Boyaz. Then, an incomparably dazzling and shocking radiance tore through the dark void and scattered the star-like radiance wantonly in this pitch-black space. It was so dazzling that not only did it occupy all the warships present, but the MS cameras also allowed the three-ship alliance, who were still a distance away, to witness the light ball that tore through the darkness. That's Boyaz? Maul straightened her back in shock, and looked at the light ball in the distance with a face full of shock. On the grass matriarch, Zasaka and Carrie were the same. We are one step too late. On the bridge of the SS Eternity, Lakis bit her lips slightly as her hands gradually clenched tightly. The three-ship alliance's reaction speed was already at its fastest limit, but they were still one step behind. Looking at the ball of light in the distance that was sometimes dim and sometimes bright, Lei Minkai retracted his gaze and raised his hand to gently cover Lux's hands. Lakis, we have already done our best. Since Boyaz has fallen, the Earth Alliance army, who is aware of the power of nuclear weapons, will definitely take advantage of the victory and launch an attack on Plant's territory. Lakis looked up and exchanged glances with Rei Minkai before slowly nodding her head. Yes, we still have a chance. The Earth Alliance army will definitely launch a decisive battle on Plant's territory. We still have a chance. Captain Butterfield, please. Hearing this, Butterfield, who was sitting below, turned his chair and nodded towards Lakis. After exchanging glances with Rei Minkai, he raised his hand to signal Aisha to contact Archangel and Grass Matriarch. Aisha, notify Archangel and Grass Matriarch. Change course, we are going to Plant. No, we are going to Yakin Due's defense line. The moment Boyaz was enveloped by the light of the nuclear weapon, the three-ship alliance saw it. Mia, who was in Plant's April City, also saw it. At this moment, she was standing quietly beside Patrick Sala, watching all of this happen. She was also watching Kreutzer, who was standing behind everyone and expressing her opinion on Boyaz's battle until the moment Boyaz was destroyed by the nuclear weapon. Patrick looked at the familiar yet terrifying scene, the light that had once swallowed his true love, and the flames of anger burned from the depths of his heart. Shameless naturals. They actually grasped that power once again. Speaker? A woman with short silver hair looked at Patrick worriedly. She was Zach's mother, Isalia Jewel. No. I am fine, Isalia. But, in the face of the Natural's shameless actions, we need stronger weapons to protect ourselves. Kreutzer and... Patrick waved his hand. After calling out Kreutzer's name, he paused for a moment before looking at the young lady who had never expressed her opinion or interfered with the decision of the council members. Lakis, you come along too. We are going to Yakindue. Mia bowed slightly and replied in a neutral tone, that's right. Yes, father. Yakindue. That was Plant's last line of defense. Not only did Zaf deploy a large number of troops here, he also deployed the forces that Patrick and the rest had high hopes for. In an airship that glided out of April City's port, Patrick had just closed his eyes when he was unexpectedly awoken by a gentle touch on his head. Please relax, father. You have been a little tense recently. Let me help you relax a little. The soft and familiar voice made Patrick subconsciously relax. He slowly closed his eyes, but he didn't fall asleep because of it. Lakis, how is Aslan's situation recently? Pretty good. Aslan was now training the newly formed Defender Army. I heard that it is going well. It's at Yakindue, right? Patrick remembered that Aslan had suddenly come to him not long ago and volunteered to lead the troop. Although it was a little abrupt, it was nothing. As the chairman of the National Defense Committee and the speaker, such small matters were naturally not a problem. Mia nodded, her hand movements becoming softer and softer, making Patrick even more relaxed. Yes. It's at Yakinduwe. The journey from April City to Yakinduwe was not far. While Patrick and Mia were talking, the airship entered Yakinduwe's port. The moment the airship stopped, Patrick opened his eyes again. The iron-fisted chairman of the National Defense Committee that Zaft was familiar with had returned. Lakis, after this battle, Aslan and the Sarah family will be in your hands. Although Aslan is not very useful, we will still have to trouble you. The moment he stepped out of the airship, Patrick spoke to Mia as if he was leaving his will. Yes, Father. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.